Chapter 611, Ambush. Who was Nanmen Shui? Of course, Zhuo Mo knew, the person ranked third on the Great Peace Mo rankings. After the battle with Xinyu, Zhuo Mo's ranking had shot up. And in a flash, he went from the bottom of the ranking to the 7th rank. But why would the other challenge him? This shouldn't be happening. If the 3rd ranked challenged the 7th ranked, the victory would not be fair and there were no benefits to winning. Zhuo Mo found it bewildering. He walked into the yard and raised his head to see Nanmen Shui with his black robes flapping in the wind. You are not going to accept the challenge. Princess Xia suddenly crowded over. The beautiful face was mischievous. This person's mind is faulty. Zhuo Mo stared at Nanmen Shui in the air as he muttered, I did not offend him, so strange. He thought and then shook his head, I won't accept. Why do you not accept? A hint of confusion flashed through Princess Xia's eyes. If you do not accept, your reputation will drop. People in Great Peace City that do not accept challenges will be laughed at. I can't win. Zhuo Mo threw up his hands with a helpless expression. Princess Xia was stunned. It was the first time she had met someone who would admit their weakness in front of her. The other men would try to show off their strength in front of her, show off their wealth, show off all kinds of qualities, each of them like peacocks with their tail feathers spread out. There was someone who actually admitted in front of her that he could not win. Then, after a long while, Princess Xia did not know what to say. Let him cool himself up there, the wind is pretty strong. Zhuo Mo shook his head and moved his gaze away. He prepared to take Xiaoguo and Li Yingfeng to leave. Princess Xia couldn't help but laugh at these words. The person in front of her didn't have any of his previous seriousness and was like a little hoodlum. Princess Xia's eyes moved as she said, what if he were to pursue you outside the city? Zhuo Mo turned around and said with a serious expression, actually, I never told you before, but what I am most skilled at is fighting using many against few. Fighting with many against few. After repeating it once, Princess Xia finally reacted. Her body trembled as she laughed. Pointing at Zhuo Mo's nose, she said, you are a rascal. Zhuo Mo's eyes accidentally saw the motions at Princess Xia's bosom. It was like he was struck with lightning and he froze immediately where he stood. Illusory spell, it came again, was this kind of illusory spell something that was automatically cast? Princess Xia was a perceptive person and immediately noticed Zhuo Mo's state. She was not bashful, and she blinked her eyes at Zhuo Mo as she covered her mouth and laughed lightly. Hem. Zhuo Mo awkwardly coughed and then said, is there a back door? One that I can sneak out of? Seeing Zhuo Mo act like this, Princess Xia felt like laughing. She summoned a servant and said a few words before she said to Zhuo Mo, you can follow her. Thank you. Zhuo Mo's words were sincere. He bowed to Princess Xia. Princess Xia was completely different compared to what Pu Yao and Wei had spoken of. He did not know how Princess Xia appeared in other people's eyes, but in his eyes, she was a good person. Waving a hand at Princess Xia, he took Xiaoguo and Li Yingfeng as he moved away with the servant. Watching Zhuo Mo's figure disappear, a hint of dispiritedness flashed through Princess Xia's eyes. But it faded in a blink. The smile on her face faded, and her gaze became sharp again. Confidence and ease came back onto her face. She suddenly glanced at Nanmen Shui in the air and said faintly, force him down, it is an eyesore to look at. The middle-aged female attendant was about to act when her expression changed. Someone has come. As she finished speaking, a strange demonic sound seemed to burrow out of the deep of the earth. A man dressed in snowy white robes appeared near Nanmen Shui. The crowd that was watching, shifted. Qi Jiaoyu. Nanmen Shui's gaze slowly became cold. Qi Jiaoyu. I have come to challenge you. Qi Jiaoyu's indifferent voice immediately caused a furor. The sudden appearance of Qi Jiaoyu at this time attracted speculations from many people. was he helping out Xiao Mo Gu? With an icy expression, Nan Men Shui suddenly smiled, as I expected. Even though the other did not say what was expected, Qi Jiao Ye's expression suddenly changed. Not good, he had fallen for a trap. His body suddenly flashed. Almost at the same time, Nan Men Shui appeared in front and blocked his path. Nan Men Shui smiled, showing his teeth. Since Brother Qi wants to challenge me, then let's have a good fight. The two top experts were at a standoff and the fight could be set off by anything. Zhuo Mo snuck out the back door after following the servant. In order to disguise himself, Zhuo Mo put on a little illusory art on his face. He felt grateful to Qi Jiaoyu who had appeared. This was a good person. Just after coming out of the door, he heard Xiao Guo who was under his arm say in a trembling voice, "Xixiao, is it you?" Zhuo Mo stopped walking and lightly rubbed Xiao Guo's head with his hand. Xiao Guo is really smart. Xiao Guo couldn't hold it back any longer and started to cry as she hugged Zhuo Mo. Like a child, she hugged Zhuo Mo tightly, tears and snot flowing down. Zhuo Mo sighed inside as he lightly patted Xiao Guo. Li Yingfeng also reacted at this time, and there was a disbelieving joy on her face. "Zhuo Xixiao, are you really Zhuo Xixiao?" Zhuo Mo said with a smile, "Li Shiji, I'm still used to you calling me Zhuo Shidi." Li Yingfeng also could not hold it back and cried from joy. Zhuo Mo did not know how to comfort them and could only pat the two of them lightly. There were not many people on the streets, as all of them were focused on the face-off between Qi Jiaoyu and Nan Men Shui in the air. Zhuo Mo abruptly stopped walking and said lightly, "An enemy is present." He warily scanned the surroundings as he slowly put Xiao Guo and Li Yingfeng down. Hearing this, the two immediately stopped crying. The scenery around him suddenly twisted. The trees on the road seemed to be kneaded into a ball by an invisible hand. In a flash, the surroundings around the three of them were completely transformed. Xiao Guo and Li Yingfeng had ashen faces. However, they did not make a sound in fear they would disturb Zhuo Mo domain. Zhuo Mo's gaze suddenly became icy. This was an ambush that had been planned. By the time he had detected that something was wrong, he had already fallen for the enemy's trap. They had actually sent an expert that comprehended domain to ambush him. A golem of mud slowly rose from the ground. His body was covered in wet mud and only the general shape of a person could be seen. "Who are you?" Zhuo Mo thought of Nan Men Shui who had just challenged him. He felt there was a connection between the two of them. He suddenly said, "So Nan Men Shui has given his allegiance to you people. You are actually smart." The other reflexively responded, but he immediately realized that he had fallen for a trap. He smiled darkly. "Your realization has come too late. If you want someone to blame, blame Qi Jiaoyu for being too dumb." Qi Jiaoyu. Shock flashed through Zhuo Mo's mind. How was this matter related to Qi Jiaoyu? However, no matter how hard he thought, he could not think what connection he had to Qi Jiaoyu. It is useless no matter how much you think about it, submit peacefully. The mud golem smiled darkly. Zhuo Mo suddenly felt his feet become heavy and his body sank down slowly. At some unknown time, the hard ground under his feet became soft mud like that of a bog. There was a strong attraction force that came from within the bog that pulled the bodies of the three of them downwards. This was strange. The strange presence of corrosiveness were in wisps that burrowed into Zhuo Mo's body like insects. Xiao Guo and Li Yingfeng's expressions were ashen. Their cultivation was too low and they were fragile in front of a domain. Zhuo Mo plucked the two of them from the bog and put them on his back. With his strength, the mass of the two women was negligible. But when he did this, his body suddenly sank further. The bog reached past his calves. The dark and cold presences were like a group of strange and mad insects that continuously burrowed into his body. But the sun crystal seed in Zhuo Mo's body would not tolerate its territory being invaded. It immediately sent out a few streams of fire that swept out, clearing out the dark and cold energies. He had the sun crystal seed and he cultivated the 10-crow celestial apparatus. While he could not be invaded by anything evil no matter how Zhuo struggled, he could not break free of the force that was pulling him down. Watching as he continued to sink, Zhuo could not care for anything else and activated his still incomplete 10-crow celestial domain. A dash of red light spread from Zhuo's feet. Zhuo felt his feet lighten and his body rose up slightly. "Oh, I had assumed that you would use the reverse stellar revolution first, not your incomplete 10-crow celestial domain." The mud golem smiled darkly. "The 10-crow celestial domain is powerful, but that is only after you achieve it. It is naive to think you can stop me with what it is now." The bog suddenly spread from under Zhuo's feet. In a blink, what Zhuo could see was just a bog as vast as the ocean. The strong force pulling his feet had multiplied. It was like there was a monster hiding under the bog that was pulling him down. The power was so strong that Zhuo almost couldn't raise his arm. In a blink, the mud reached his knees. Damn it! Zhuo had not expected that he wouldn't have any power to fight back. His gaze landed on the reversed stellar revolution. His mind shifted and a handful of sparks shot at the mud golem. The mud golem laughed and suddenly entered the bog. His body disappeared and the sparks missed. Slightly interesting. The voice came from behind Zhuo. The mud golem appeared behind Zhuo like a ghost. His tone carried a hint of smugness. "I heard that it was your reverse stellar revolution that defeated the Peacock King Plume. It seems that the Peacock King Plume isn't anything special after all. So disappointing." Zhuo was silent. The handful of sparks turned into a stream of light and shot behind him. Almost at the same time, a mud golem suddenly rose from the bog in front of him. "Is this the extent of your abilities?" The mud golem was slightly disappointed. "If this is all you can do, then your life will end here today." As he finished speaking, one mud golem after another slowly rose up from the bog. In a flash, there were an endless amount of mud golems. Chapter 612, The Mud Golem Visitor. Why had the other ambushed him? This thought flashed through Zhuo's mind before disappearing. He closely watched the mud golems that rose from the bog of mud. A strong feeling of danger caused all the hairs on his body to stand on end. This person's domain was not as bright and colorful as Xinye's Peacock Eyespot domain, but Zhuo could feel that the other's domain was more complete than Xinye's. This person was more experienced than Xinyu. From the ambush in the beginning, to even this action, they were not slow or rushed, he controlled the pace of battle. This was very terrifying. Expert. A definite expert. The reversed stellar revolution returned to Zhuo's hand. The strong power pulling down on his feet constantly disrupted Zhuo's focus. There was no leverage in the bog. Regardless of how strong Zhuo was, he could not use his strength. The mud domain of the ambusher was the perfect counter to Zhuo. This was an ambush that had been planned for a long time and the enemy found his weakness. After this short contact, he landed in a well-planned net. However, how could he admit defeat so easily? Waves of heat came from the reversed stellar revolution. The muddy water that flew at him was stopped. Every spark in the reversed stellar revolution was formed from sun-shen power. The other definitely would not have thought of this. Zhuo smirked coldly and the hand with reversed stellar revolution suddenly pushed into the muddy bog under his feet. Boom! The bog under his feet trembled violently, followed by a sudden scream so loud, it almost ruptured Zhuo's eardrums. Streams of steam rose up, and his vision was shrouded in white. The strongest quality of a bog was its flexibility. This was something given to it by water. Water was the greatest bane of fire, but the opposite was also true. If the fire was strong enough, it could subdue water. Zhuomo's reverse stellar revolution was made from Sun Shan power and unparalleled in its fire attribute. There had been many tribal heroes that had been turned to ash under the power of the Sun Shan power. When the sparks entered the bog, the domineering fire attribute of Sun Shan power was completely stimulated. In a flash, every spark expanded and turned into a ball of fire. Like a flood of fire, the reversed stellar revolution rampaged under the bog. Everywhere it passed, the moisture in the bog dried up. When the dried soil was passed over by the wave of fire, it melted and turned into beads of glass. If one looked down from the sky, they could see that heat wave was spreading rapidly with Zhuomo at the epicenter. Everywhere it passed, the mud golems seemed to be paralyzed and immediately lost their moisture as they stood. The mud golem was stunned and wanted to escape. But the Sun Shan power was too strong. Before his feet could leave the bog, the Sun Shan power spread to him. The mud golem lost moisture in front of Zhuomo at a visible rate and turned into a statue. Then the statue started to crumble as though it was weathered by sand. The pieces of mud dropped to the ground and smashed into dust. The speed of crumbling increased and it finally could not stand under its own weight and turned into a pile of dust. Boom! On the dry bog, the numerous mud golems seemed to have received an order and collapsed at the same time. The scene was spectacular. On Zhuomo's back, Xiaogua and Liang Feng were dumbstruck with wide eyes. Zhuo Shixiang, was this powerful? The reversed stellar revolution once again returned to Zhuomo's hand. Once it back came to him, Zhuomo found that the color of the reversed stellar revolution was much dimmer than before. The scenery around them resumed to normal. The streets were normal. Those that were walking nearby didn't even detect that a battle of life and death had occurred here just now. There was only a pile of mud specks in front of Zhuomo. Coincidentally, a gust of wind blew, and the powder was caught up. It dissipated into the air. He did not have a smug expression. Zhuomo cautiously inspected the surroundings, and without a word, started to sprint. Moments later, two figures appeared at where Zhuomo had been fighting. We underestimated him. Yes, never thought that even the mud golem Mo guessed would not be a match for him. The appearance of Qi Jiaoyu has proven our speculation. Xiao Mo Gu is that person. Nanmen Shui has been exposed. His original use was to be exposed. He can help attract attention from us when we act. What do we do now? Do not be impatient. One throws a rock to test the road. As the rock is thrown, there naturally are people that cannot bear the loneliness. Zhuomo sprinted back to the compound without any other trouble. When he reached the compound and saw Xu Long and the others, he finally sighed in relief. Everyone saw Xiaogua and Liang Feng who Zhuomo was holding and perceptively did not ask. When they returned to the inner compound, Zhuomo's mind finally relaxed. Xiaogua asked timidly, Shixiang. Zhuomo turned his head and smiled at Xiaogua. Were you frightened? A little bit. Xiaogua timidly nodded. She seemed to have returned to the time of Wukong sword sect, with that Shixiang that kept supporting her having returned to her side. She felt as though she was dreaming. For some reason, the rims of her eyes reddened and her voice went deeper. Shixiang is very strong. Liang Feng's eyes were also red. The experiences she had were like a nightmare. However, she was trying to be strong and forced it back. She said, Shixiang, if you have matters at hand, you can attend to them first. She saw the people in the yard continuously bowing to Zhuomo. Even though she was filled with surprise, she understood that Zhuomo was the leader of this group. The ambush on the road just now had been unusual and Zhuo Shixiang definitely had matters to take care of. You should prepare. We might leave this place immediately, Zhuomo said gravely. Then he turned and walked towards the outside. Xu Long saw Zhuomo come out of the yard and moved towards him. Darren. Zhuomo asked directly, is everyone here? Xu Long stilled but then immediately understood. Something had happened. He said after a moment of thought, a one, Nan Yu, Tsang Zhe, Ming Ju Zi, the black and orange Yao are all at the Mo skill steals. Send someone immediately to call them back, Sui Mo said gravely. Have everyone else pack up. When they come back, we will leave here immediately. Yes. Xu Long heard the urgency of the commands. Without another word, he turned and left. Sui Mo's face was dark. He had a feeling that a large whirlpool that he could not see was coming closer to him. The black smoke Yao devoutly studied the characters on the stele in front of him. He had an eidetic memory and did not forget what he saw. In these past days, he had visited almost every one of the Mo skill steles. But his gaze landed on a one and big orange. A one did not pay attention to anything in the environment. His hand subconsciously moved. Even the black smoke Yao could feel the hint of profoundness in those normal movements. Big Orange was completely different. He paced in front of the stele like an ant on top of a fire, and then grabbed at his hair. Sometimes, he would talk to the sky. His orange hair now looked like a bird's nest. He could not just hold still. The lightning, hail, and flames that erupted around his body was frightening, which caused the Mo skill steles around him to be empty. These two freaks. The black smoke Yao felt great admiration. These two had the best talent out of the group. He did not know Owen well, but he felt deep admiration for how Big Orange, someone with such an unusual mind, had great talent. While he admired it, he felt even happier for Big Orange. Truthfully, when he had first found those cultivation notes, he had discovered that Big Orange had much greater talent than he did. This was also why he had pulled Big Orange along on this journey. However, the black smoke Yao also found that with every Mo skill stele imprinted in his mind, he quickly noticed something that was overlooked by all the others. There were some descriptive phrases that would appear on some steles. These phrases were not long, and appeared normal. Some were related to philosophy and others that were hard to understand. But the black smoke Yao was an attentive person. When he found these phrases, he thought of the notes he had found. Phrases like these had also appeared in the notes. The notes had said that Shi Ziming had always been searching for something. He had roamed the three realms of Yao, Mo, and Xiu in search of this thing. The followers did not know what Shi Ziming was searching for, but he had faithfully copied down what Shi Ziming had said. Those words and the phrases that appeared on the steles were in the same style. Was there a secret contained in these? That was the first thought that flashed through the black smoke Yao's mind. He felt very excited by this idea. His cultivation talent was not as great as the orange-haired Yao, but his intelligence was outstanding. These phrases scattered on the steles, that did not attract much attention, were like an unknown secret that deeply attracted him. He started to organize all the stone steles in his mind. His powerful memory was extremely useful. He quickly picked out those phrases that were unrelated to cultivation from all the stone steles. Consequently, he quickly found that several of the phrases had appeared in the notes as well. This result caused the black smoke Yao to become even more excited. The time of the notes should have been the time that Shi Ziming had been roaming. Shi Ziming had said these words during that time he traveled, and Shi Ziming had only built Great Peace City many years later. He had engraved these exact words onto the Mo skill steles. It was not a coincidence. There definitely was a deeper meaning contained in these phrases that other people did not know. Thinking about the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion that everyone was talking about, the black smoke Yao's mind moved. Were these phrases related to the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion? When he had first heard the rumors, he had researched the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. It had existed at the beginning of Great Peace City, but Shi Ziming had eventually sealed it and it gradually faded from people's minds. Why had Shi Ziming sealed the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion? What was really inside the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion? This was a riddle that had never been solved. When the black smoke Yao carefully pondered the phrases he copied from the steles, he seemed to see an almost indiscernible line connecting the puzzle pieces. Chapter 613, Conspiracy. Looking at the enemy battalion crumbling in front of him, Gong Sun Cha's expression was as calm as usual. Beside him, a thread of fearful respect flashed through a Zhao Ge's eyes. The battalion that was falling apart in front of them was the 9th battalion that they had defeated. Lil Miss Darren was really too powerful. He could not describe his respect and reverence of Lil Miss Darren. A Zhao Gu had been one of the 3 great battle generals of the Rahula clan and held a high opinion of himself. But after he personally saw Lil Miss Darren's terrifying control of the battlefield, he was left with deep respect. He never believed that a battle general could be so powerful, winning every battle with undefeatable attacks. All 9 battalions had crumbled in engagement round. Vermilion Bird Camp was like a peerlessly sharp blade. Nothing could stop its advance. As a battle general that was here due to surrendering, a Zhao Gu knew that he needed to do more than other people in order to earn his place in this faction. Right now, he was full of confidence in this faction. He was full of confidence in its strength and vitality. Their battalion's performance would directly affect the well-being of his clansmen. A Zhao Gu and his battalion worked very hard. However, he quickly discovered that Lil Miss Darren did not think of them as cannon fodder. Whenever they encountered a powerful battalion, Vermilion Bird Camp always charged at the very front. A Zhao Gu was left feeling of grateful. In the Mo realm where the strong ate the weak, surrendered battalions like theirs were usually used at the front line and given the most dangerous positions. The rate of death was very high, and they received the worst supplies. No one cared about their life or death. But here, Lil Miss Darren did not have any negative opinions about them. He frequently took care of them and taught them. They did not need to worry that they would be used as cannon fodder, and no one would hate them because they were Mo. Everyone held an account of favors and grievances in their heart. A Zha he held one, and so did his soldiers. What they could do in response was fight as hard as they could. Even though Vermilion Bird Camp took the lead in the majority of battles, a Zhao Gu battalion also experienced several hard battles. As the state of affairs in the Mo world continued to escalate, the skill level of battalions in each area continuously rose. The leader of every faction understood that without a powerful battalion, they would not be able to survive in such chaotic times. Every battle they experienced was not easy. Compared to Vermilion Bird Camp that was unstoppable, a Zhao Gu battalion had a much harder time. Almost a sixth of the battalion had died. But the overall strength of the battalion skyrocketed. Every elite force was forged in countless difficult battles. This was not a lie. After several battles, a Zhao Gu battalion had gained the morale of an elite force. Everyone had steadier presences, and their teamwork rose. The fatality rate decreased drastically. In the battle just now, only 9 people had died. Even though they had only just gone a quarter of the journey, everyone was filled with confidence. Rest for the night. We will advance in the morning. As the sun set, Lil Miss orders echoed in the silent battlefield. What did you say? Yelled the Sound Fall Jia master, he could be heard from far away. Darren. This is true. The East Lu battalion of East Lu Jia only managed to resist for 1 hour. The subordinate's voice trembled. This subordinate saw it, it is true. 1 hour. The Jia master's expression almost froze on his face. A moment later, he murmured in disbelief, how is it possible? The strength of East Lu battalion. He knew very well that East Lu battalion was on par with the strongest battalion under his command. This battalion that came out of nowhere was this strong. 1 hour. Darren. The subordinate hurriedly said, this battalion of unknown origins did not occupy East Lu Jia. Did not occupy at East Lu Jia, the Jia master focused and was very curious. Why didn't they take over East Lu Jia? This subordinate also did not understand. According to what this subordinate heard, they did not take over any of the Jia that they passed. This subordinate speculates that they are traveling. This subordinate caught some of the survivors from East Lu Battalion and discovered after interrogating them that this battalion had requested for East Lu Battalion to let them pass. They were refused by East Lu Battalion and then they attacked East Lu Battalion. Are they only just passing through? The Jia master felt that this was a joke. This subordinate thinks so. I don't believe. Darren. This battalion has defeated 9 battalions along their way. They are so strong they can rank within the top 50 battalion of 100 Savage Realm. If they want to attack Sound Fall Jia, this subordinate fears. The subordinate did not continue, but the words did not have to be spoken. The Jia master hesitated for a while before gritting his teeth and saying, "Allow them to pass, and prepare our forces in case you are wrong. But do not attack first." Suo Mo's expression was terrible. One and the others had suddenly disappeared. The people of guard camp searched through all of the steel forest and did not find a shadow of one and the others. Having just experienced the ambush, Suo Mo's first conclusion and reaction was someone conspiring against them? But he quickly shook his head. Wen's group was 6 people. If they were attacked, there wasn't any way that it would have gone completely unnoticed. Guard camp who had gone to search for them had asked the other people in the steel forest. Those people had all nodded and said the group had been there just a while ago. The orange-haired Yao was too eye-catching to forget. But no one knew how they had disappeared. If someone wanted to steal away these 6 people without any disturbance, it was only possible if the kidnappers were all experts, attacked before they could react, and had attacked with equal numbers. Was it then possible? There was no trace of Nan Yu and the others in the 10-finger prison. Someone is targeting you, Pu Yao said coldly. Starting with Nanmen Shui, this string of events is not quite right, Wei followed. I'll go find Nanmen Shui. Suo Mo thought and then said. There is no use. Pu Yao shook his head. Nanmen Shui is clearly a pawn thrown out as a distraction. He probably acted because of a transaction he made. He probably doesn't know anything at all. What solutions do you have? Suo Mo suppressed the murderousness inside his chest and asked Pu Yao. Pu Yao said, the best way is to remain calm and not do anything. Wei explained, if they were really kidnapped, the culprit's true target is you. No matter what aims the other have, they will come find you. You need to wait and be calm. Suo Mo thought and then felt the two of them were right. He forced himself to calm down. He suddenly felt he was very stupid. In terms of scheming, there wasn't anyone more skilled than these 2 old bandits. What was he doing thinking by himself? You say that they are targeting me. Why? Suo Mo decided to throw the problem to the 2 old bandits. A bloody light danced in Pu Yao's bloody pupil. He felt slightly excited. It had been too long since such an exciting event. His mind worked quickly as he said, first, it definitely isn't a grudge. The ambusher today did not try and assassinate you, they wanted to capture you alive. Suo Mo thought back and immediately found it reasonable. Yes, after you mention this, I have also noticed it. He did not use a killing move. He wanted to capture you but not kill you, so the possibility that this was motivated by a grudge is not high. Then it must be that you have something that they want, or they want you to do something. As expected from old bandits. After a few sentences, Suo Mo immediately felt his thoughts clear up. What do I have? What can I do? You have many things. Like Shen Power, the Sun Crystal Seed, these are all objects that people would want, Wei said slowly. There are even more things you can do. For example, seduce Princess Xia. Ha! Pu Yao heartlessly roared with laughter. Suo Mo was slightly angry. You are in the mood to make a joke at this time. Relax. Wei said with a smile, the more normal you appear now, the less the other will be able to keep calm. Do you mean? Suo Mo wasn't able to react. Do what you had planned to do before, like the 2 invitations the princesses sent you. Why don't you go? It is good if you listen to what they say. Wei urged. You are not the local snakehead, you do not have any spies. If you want to lure others out, you will have to act as bait. The more people you come into contact with, the more panicked the other will be because they cannot guess what you will think of doing next, and what you plan. A cold smile rose at the corner of Pu Yao's lip. What a schemer is most afraid of is not knowing. With the 2 old bandits supporting him, Zhou Mo felt reassured. He did not make any ruckus over the disappearances, but he quickly received a letter from Lan Tianlong. The letter said that they were thinking of ways to help him search for his missing subordinates and told him to be careful of his own safety. Moved, Zhou Mo immediately realized that the entire city probably knew that One and the others had disappeared. This was not strange. Guard camp had not concealed themselves when they were searching and had asked many other people. The news would not be able to be concealed. Princess Xia also quickly sent someone with a letter. The contents were generally the same. It said that she would help ask around for him and tell him if she had news. Princess Xia's letter caused Pu Yao and Wei to become excited again. The 2 said that Princess Xia was perusing Zhou Mo and urged Zhou Mo to work her harder to get this pretty flower. Inside, Zhou Mo thought that the 2 old bandits wanted to retaliate against Princess Xia. Also, in his mind, Princess Xia was his friend to whom he also owed her a favor. How could he harm her? He completely disregarded the suggestions from the 2 fogies. The letters from all the families quickly followed. Right now, Xiao Mo Gu was a personage and had a limitless future. There were many that wanted to establish relationships with him. But there was no information about One and the others at all in these letters. There was also no news from the 10-finger prison. The guard around Zhou Mo's yard became even heavier. Patiently waiting for news, Zhou Mo cultivated like usual. Suddenly, he felt a strange ripple come from his ring. What was this? Zhou Mo's mind moved and then immediately, he had a joyful expression. Chapter 614, The Awoken Black Gold Seal Soldier. A lazy yawn floated out of the ring. Then a figure flashed and a dark gold figure appeared in front of Zhou Mo. The Black Gold Seal Soldier. The face that was a mirror image of Zhou Mo's instantly smiled and then he rushed over. Big brow, I'm hungry, is there something to eat? Zhou Mo's brow twitched. Eat? This glutton. He had already eaten all 200 ling beasts in one go and then had slept until now. Once he opened his eyes, what he wanted to do first was eat. No. Zhou Mo's face was stern as he stared with unfriendliness at the glutton in front of him. The Black Gold Seal Soldier suddenly sniffed. His eyes lit up and then his body disappeared. Wails from Mo's steeds came from outside the room. Zhou Mo smacked his forehead with his hand. He looked upwards and was speechless. Little Mo Gu had always been clever and rarely got involved in unprofitable business. However, he tripped up on this glutton. A ball of wind blew by and the Black Gold Seal Soldier appeared in front of Zhou Mo. He licked his lips and said with discontent, there wasn't much flavor. Zhou Mo's already unfriendly glance immediately became even more unfriendly. He decided to have a good talk with the Black Gold Seal Soldier. It was best to adjust the incorrect perspectives of a delinquent youth now from just knowing to eat and sleep. You want to eat well? Zhou Mo had a pure smile. Of course. The Black Gold Seal Soldier's eyes lit up. Big bro, where? If you want to eat well, you have to work hard. Those that work can eat, those that don't work can't, the more you work, the more you can eat. Zhou Mo said with a smile. His expression was very similar to Wei. Bam bam bam. The Black Gold Seal Soldier beat his chest and it rang out metallically. He said with bravado, Big bro, I'll do what you say. Good, this delinquent youth was not at a level that was unsavable. Mo rejoiced inside and his eyes moved. Do you know how to fight? Born to battle. The black gold seal soldier paused slightly and then said seriously, I will fight if there is food, but I will not fight if there is no food. I will fight more if there is more food. Mo's smile froze on his face. So other than looking the same as him, this guy was as cunning as he was. Mo felt a headache. Just at this time, Tseng Lianer suddenly walked in. She saw the black gold seal soldier with his familiar appearance and had a curious expression. What is this? She pointed at the black gold seal soldier and asked Mo, Miss. Please do not use terms casually. The black gold seal soldier said seriously, I am not a thing, I am black gold. Oh, big bro, who is she? This girl is pretty beautifully, big bro, your tastes finally leveled up. However, you abandoned a Goe. Big bro, how can you do that? You abandoned the first wife, I had a wrong opinion of you. As expected of my big bro, a cruel rake, a libertine, I need to learn from you. Mo wanted to die. Other than being a glutton and a sleeper, this was a chatterbox. Heavens, so many valuable materials wasted on creating him, all of it for nothing, truly no profit at all. Tseng Lianer looked with interest at the black gold seal soldier. The black gold seal soldier had keen eyes and rushed to Agui's side like a gust of wind when he saw her. Agui, Agui. Big brother didn't abandon you. I was just saying, big bro is such an honorable person, how could he abandon Agui? Agui, Agui, is there something to eat? I'm so hungry. Agui suddenly turned around and walked outside. The black gold seal soldier immediately followed behind her and started to flatter her. Mo was dumbstruck. He is. There was a smile at the corner of Tseng Lianer's mouth. This caused her eyes to become even more alluring. A terrible accident. Mo spread his hands with an expression of distaste. There are many Shouja that have come to Great Peace City. Tseng Lianer suddenly said. Shouja. Mo stilled. After staying for so long in the Mo world, even he felt slightly unfamiliar when he heard the word Shouja. Tseng Lianer's eyes curved slightly as she said, it is the 4 great sections. At least 20 people, and some are very strong. Their disguise is very good, no one has discovered them yet. The 4 great. Mo was surprised and his expression immediately turned grave. How come the 4 have come? Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. Tseng Lianer spat out the 4 words. Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. Mo didn't quite believe it. What kind of sects were the 4 great sections? When the Sunshin Temple in Cloud Sea Jia had opened, only Tianhuan had come. And even then they had sent just 1 Yuanying Shouja. For sects like the Great 4 that had a long history, there were very few treasure hoards that they would target. Mo didn't quite believe that the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion would attract the Great 4. I fought against them. When Tseng Lianer threw the words out, she scared Mo half to death. You're crazy. Now he believed it and immediately felt a headache. On this side, Awan and the others had suddenly disappeared and there were undercurrents swirling in Great Peace City. Now, even the Shouja had come to participate. Even as dumb as he was, he knew the situation would become even more complex. He suddenly thought of a question. What is in the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion? Why would even the 4 great sects of the Shouja come? Tseng Lianer was silent. Mo stared directly at her. A moment later, she said serenely, inside the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion, there are 3 treasures. The other 2 are unidentified but there is one that many people know of. It is a steal. A steal? There was a disbelieving expression on Mo's face. The most crucial steal of the Great Peace Mo skill steals. Tseng Lianer's eyes were blurry. Her voice was ethereal. Ever since the ancient era and after the era of Shen power, the Xiuzhe, Yao, and Mo have rose to power. Yao arts, Mo skills, Xiuzhe spells, these three cultivation methods have been the most popular. The method of Shen power cultivation has been lost, but as the cultivation realms increased, the experts of the three races found that they encountered a block in their cultivation. They tried many ways to surpass this blockade but they could not break through this barrier. Sui Mo listened quietly. Tsing Lianer's ethereal voice added a faint mysteriousness to these secrets. These ancestors traced back to the origins of cultivation from multiple generations and found that the only method of breaking through this barrier is to cultivate Shen power. All three powers are derived from Shen power, but because of this they are all also incomplete. When the three powers are cultivated to their limits, if one wants to increase further in power, they have to return to Shen power. However, the way to cultivate Shen power was lost long ago. They started to search for all kinds of Shen power inheritances, but they are all unable to be connected with the present cultivation systems. The legends say that Shi Ziming found the solution. This Mo skill still records his knowledge, but Shi Ziming did not dare to release the contents, so he sealed it in the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. You also have come for this steel? Sui Mo stared at Tsing Lianer. I didn't consider it in the beginning, Tsing Lianer said serenely, but since I am here, why not? You already cultivate Shen power, what is the use in having that? Sui Mo asked in bewilderment. My Shen power inheritance is more complete than yours, but it has also lost sections over generations. This steel is very important to me, and can supplement my Moon Shen records. Tsing Lianer looked at Sui Mo and said, You are the most talented person I ever saw in cultivating Shen power. Other than you, I have never seen anyone perform Shen power breathing. However, your understanding of Shen power is not as good as mine. Even with your talent you are still only knocking on the door of Shen power. Only by obtaining this steel can you finally step through the doorway to Shen power. Only now did Sui Mo understand why the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion was causing so many to be obsessed. What does all this have to do with me? Sui Mo smirked coldly. I was pulled in. Don't tell me this is a coincidence. It really isn't a coincidence. Tsing Lianer's gaze was unfocused as she said serenely. The rumors are that 2 keys are required to open the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. No one knows what the first key is, but the second key is supposed to be a special person. Special person? Sui Mo stilled. He had never thought it would be such an absurd reason. He pointed at his nose and didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he said, Is this special person me? Right now, you are the most likely. Tsing Lianer's eyes curved with mirth. Sui Mo was dumbstruck. Why is it me? Causing shifting star sands at the Mo skill steals. You were the first to cause a worldly apparition there. Tsing Lianer's eyes curled even more. Her flawless face was like a picure. Shi Yue also seems to have an interest in you. Qi Diao Yu discovered that you cultivate Shen power. He also discovered that I and Agui do too. It was such an absurd reason. There is something else you missed. When you achieved Shen power breathing, the Mo skill steals responded to you. The city only suspects that you are that person, but I am the only one certain that you are. Tsing Lianer looked deeply at Sui Mo and then disappeared. Sui Mo was stunned by Tsing Lianer's words. The black gold seal soldier followed behind Agui and looked around occasionally. He appeared sneaky and his nose moved with hunger on his face. Agui did not make a sound as she walked and jumped past the wall, it was as though she was walking on flat ground. She didn't attract any attention as she walked. The black gold seal soldier sneakily followed behind her with excitement and anticipation. With a few jumps, Agui led the black gold seal soldier into a yard. This was the yard of the celestial planet guards. Agui suddenly appeared behind a celestial planet guard like a ghost. With a light touch, this celestial planet guard immediately fell unconscious and dropped to the ground. Then Agui pushed open the wooden door that this celestial planet guard had been guarding. There were all kinds of MO steeds inside. This was the stable where the Celestial Planet Guard kept their MO steeds. The Celestial Planet Guard was the personal guard of Tsing Yi, and their outfitted equipment was top-notch. Their MO steeds were not an exception to this. None of the MO steeds were of a low grade. The black gold seal soldier's eyes immediately lit up and started to drool. He opened his mouth and sucked. Hundreds of MO steeds were unable to react before they drastically shrank and fell into his mouth like a flood of dumplings. In a blink, the full pens were empty. The black gold seal soldier burped with a contented expression. He went to fawn over a Gui. A Gui was the best. At this moment, the smile on his face suddenly disappeared as he turned around. Murderousness flashed across the dark gold face that was a replica of Zhuomo's face. Someone was sneaking in. Chapter 615, each with their plan. Fei Fei's expression was extremely nervous. The security around this compound was so heavy that he found it hard to imagine. He seemed to have come to a very scary place. There were not many at his cultivation level that could rival his concealment and stealth movement. But even so, he almost fell for some of the traps along the way. If it wasn't that the woman's intentions were really strange, he would have immediately turned around and left. His intuition told him that this place was too dangerous. For the mission this time, the sect had used a hidden chaos rift. This chaos rift had been one that they had originally planned to use for an ambush at a crucial time. Even with these precautions, they had been attacked after just entering Great Peace City. A woman of unknown origins attacked without any warning. This woman was very strong, and even with the people from the sect fighting together, they were unable to capture her. She also seemed very certain they didn't dare to make too much of a ruckus. Had their identities been exposed? Everyone's heart sank. All of them knew very well what it meant if their identities were exposed in the MO territories. When that mysterious woman left, Fei Fei hid himself and followed her from afar. The other was even warier than he had expected and took a winding path to shake of any tail. Fei Fei had almost lost track of her several times. In the end, this woman entered this estate. Fei Fei had originally decided to leave, but he had found a flaw in the defenses. He could not resist and sneaked in. A guard of this caliber was full of holes in his eyes. But after he entered, he found that the situation inside was the reverse of what he had imagined. The estate was better protected than he had imaged. That flaw he had seen seemed more like a trap. As he continued inwards, his wish to retreat increased. At this time, he suddenly saw a woman and a completely dark person walk over. He hurriedly hid and didn't dare to breathe. This woman was not like the woman that had attacked them. There weren't any energy ripples coming from her body. The dark gold person beside her seemed to be a MO puppet. However, was that really a MO puppet? The flattery was varied as it came out of the MO puppet's mouth. In the shadows, Fei Fei felt ashamed. If he had this level of skill in the sect, his status in the sect would not be what it was now. He was shocked as well. It was rare to see such a lifelike MO puppet. But the next scene caused his jaw to drop. Hundreds of MO steeds were swallowed up by the MO puppet. In Fei Fei's eyes, the small mouth of the dark gold MO puppet suddenly became a gaping maw that could consume anything. A MO puppet that swallowed MO steeds probably would also be interested in swallowing Shuzha. Thinking about how the MO puppet would consume him, Fei Fei trembled. Suddenly, the dark gold MO puppet turned his face and looked towards the corner he was in. Fei Fei's mind blanked. He was discovered. He was very experienced in battle and calmed down. He decisively activated his spell. His body blurred and he appeared on the verge of turning into a ball of mist. Fei Fei started with his life-saving ultimate technique, Smoke Travel Spell. Smoke Travel Spell was a 6th grade spell. It could turn a person's body into a ball of smoke that would dissipate. Once one turned to smoke, they could not attack the enemy, but the majority of attacks were ineffective against them. It was a top spell for escaping. This technique had saved Fei Fei an unknown number of times. So when he detected that the situation was not right, he immediately used the smoke travel spell. He could detect the threat from the dark gold emo puppet. If he turned to light smoke, he could return to Shixiang's side. His smoke return pillar was on Shixiang's body. Yet just as he was about to successfully escape, the emo puppet appeared in front of him. The black gold seal soldier stared at Fei Fei, whose body was becoming faint. His eyes were indifferent without any of the cheer that was just there. He reached out and an ancient character on his palm lit up. Fei Fei's eyes widened and terror showed on his face. The black gold seal soldier's hand already pressed onto Fei Fei, whose body was blurring, and then he quickly moved his palm away. The bright character was imprinted on Fei Fei's almost transparent body. Fei Fei's body melted at a visible rate like a snowman under a bright sun. Fei Fei's features twisted as he furiously screamed, but he couldn't make any sounds. The black gold seal soldier looked indifferently at him. Not 5 minutes later, Fei Fei completely disappeared. Clink. A light sound. It was a ring that dropped to the ground from the smoke. The black gold seal soldier picked up the ring. The indifference on his face disappeared. He was full of smiles like before as he presented the ring to Ague. Fei Fei is dead. A hint of grief flashed through Lin Qian's eyes, but his tone was very cold. The other people stared at each other with sadness and terror in their eyes. Even though they all knew that the mission this time would be dangerous, no one had thought they would lose someone just after arriving in Great Peace City. Their start was not a good one. What that woman used was Shen power. Lin Qian's expression was calm as he said, she should have come for the Great Peace Steel as well. Everyone, be careful. Do not expose your identities before the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion appears. Yes. Everyone answered simultaneously, but it was apparent their morale had suffered. Lin Qian did not look at them and said to himself, the mission is very hard and dangerous this time. Even I do not have the confidence of victory. But our Kunlun's thousands of years of prosperity was won by our forebears through life and death struggles. Now, the world is uncertain, and these next few decades will determine the next 1,000 years. His gaze landed on the other people and his authority came through in his indifference. On matters related to the fate of Kunlun, how can we retreat? Everyone's expressions steadied. Most of them were born in Kunlun and had deep feelings towards Kunlun. Their families were also at Kunlun and their lives were deeply connected to Kunlun. One person said in a deep voice, eldest Shixiang is right, even if we die, we will have a place in the Kunlun's sword home. How can we, the people of Kunlun, fear those Yamo? At most, it is just another 1,000-year battle. Lin Qian did not speak. Morale rose and everyone's gazes became more determined. This time, those that were selected were all Yuanying experts. All of them had strong sword hearts and their spirits rose. When the noise faded, Lin Qian said with a small smile, even if that person recognized us, that is all right. Great Peace City is a gathering of many MO factions and the complexity of the situation is almost unimaginable. These MO all have their own plans and are suspicious about those around them. There are also people making waves from the shadows to muddy the waters. We are just one of the factors in Great Peace City. Some people will care about our identities, but there are also people that hope we have come to disrupt the situation and provide them with an opportunity. Everyone nodded and agreed when they heard this. So the plan will not change. The Celestial Planet Guard was in a furor. All the MO steeds in the beast pens had disappeared. What was even more crazy was that there wasn't any signs of fighting near the beast pens. Shou Ping's face was black. Someone had come and stolen all the MO steeds. This had actually occurred under his leadership. Miss hadn't said anything but Shou Ping was so ashamed he wanted to burrow into a crack in the ground. Nothing had happened to the other yards, only his steeds had been stolen from. Embarrassing. Too embarrassing. The celestial planet guard had been at the bottom of the pack in cultivation. How could the proud Shou Ping tolerate something like this happening? The pitiful celestial planet guards were tormented to death because of a glutton. But the culprit had forgotten about this matter. This is part of your plan. Nanmen Shui stared coldly at the person in front of him. This male shook his head. We did not do this. I do not believe it. Nanmen Shui said coldly, our partnership ends now. I have great doubts about your sincerity. The male's expression was normal. He still shook his head. We did not do this. We had sent people to capture Xiao Mo Gu, but he killed them. The disappearance of his subordinates has nothing to do with us. We are also investigating, but there hasn't been any clues yet. Nanmen Shui stared at the other. Seeing that the other's expression did not change, he believed that the other had not lied. Now all clues point towards me, Nanmen Shui said coldly. Don't tell me you do not have other plans. We do, the male said gravely. We are now sure that Xiao Mo Gu is that crucial person. However, we are not the only ones to realize this, the other people probably also have as well. Nanmen Shui listened silently and did not speak. Right now, everyone is looking at Xiao Mo Gu. As long as we are not targeting Xiao Mo Gu, no one would care about us, the male said calmly. The waters of Great Peace City have started to muddy. He suddenly smiled. They are all staring at Xiao Mo Gu, so we will go find the other key to Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. You know who has the key? Nanmen Shui was shocked. No. The male smiled slightly. We have a few targets. Nanmen Shui started at the other and suddenly said, is there anything I need to do? Of course. The male had a satisfied expression. You are an integral part of our plan. Then he told Nanmen Shui his plan in a lowered voice. Nanmen Shui's eyes were bright as he listened and nodded occasionally. The other's plan was outstanding. However, when the other finished telling him the plan, Nanmen Shui looked at the other and smiled. It is an outstanding plan. However, I want the fire heart gall. The other's brow furrowed. As long as you complete, Nanmen Shui shook his head. I want it now. The other's expression changed slightly. That is not possible. Really? Nanmen Shui smiled and said, your plan is so exquisite and detailed. If one part goes wrong, the whole plan falls apart. So many steps are related to me, I am a very important pawn. There is no benefit if you go back on your word. You will regret it. The other's face was dark as he gritted out. Fire heart gall or you lose, choose one. Nanmen Shui still smiled. Oh, right, I believe that you can also see that it is not a very easy matter if you want to withdraw from our partnership now. The other's complexion was ashen. Chapter 616, each with their plan. Fei Fei's expression was extremely nervous. The security around this compound was so heavy that he found it hard to imagine. He seemed to have come to a very scary place. There were not many at his cultivation level that could rival his concealment and stealth movement. But even so, he almost fell for some of the traps along the way. If it wasn't that the woman's intentions were really strange, he would have immediately turned around and left. His intuition told him that this place was too dangerous. For the mission this time, the sect had used a hidden chaos rift. This chaos rift had been one that they had originally planned to use for an ambush at a crucial time. Even with these precautions, they had been attacked after just entering Great Peace City. A woman of unknown origins attacked without any warning. This woman was very strong, and even with the people from the sect fighting together, they were unable to capture her. She also seemed very certain they didn't dare to make too much of a ruckus. Had their identities been exposed? Everyone's heart sank. All of them knew very well what it meant if their identities were exposed in the MO territories. When that mysterious woman left, Fei Fei hid himself and followed her from afar. The other was even warier than he had expected and took a winding path to shake of any tail. Fei Fei had almost lost track of her several times. In the end, this woman entered this estate. Fei Fei had originally decided to leave, but he had found a flaw in the defenses. He could not resist and sneaked in. A guard of this caliber was full of holes in his eyes. But after he entered, he found that the situation inside was the reverse of what he had imagined. The estate was better protected than he had imaged. That flaw he had seen seemed more like a trap. As he continued inwards, his wish to retreat increased. At this time, he suddenly saw a woman and a completely dark person walk over. He hurriedly hid and didn't dare to breathe. This woman was not like the woman that had attacked them. There weren't any energy ripples coming from her body. The dark gold person beside her seemed to be a MO puppet. However, was that really a MO puppet? The flattery was varied as it came out of the MO puppet's mouth. In the shadows, Fei Fei felt ashamed. If he had this level of skill in the sect, his status in the sect would not be what it was now. He was shocked as well. It was rare to see such a lifelike MO puppet. But the next scene caused his jaw to drop. Hundreds of Mo steeds were swallowed up by the MO puppet. In Fei Fei's eyes, the small mouth of the dark gold MO puppet suddenly became a gaping maw that could consume anything. A MO puppet that swallowed Mo steeds probably would also be interested in swallowing Shouja. Thinking about how the MO puppet would consume him, Fei Fei trembled. Suddenly, the dark gold Mo puppet turned his face and looked towards the corner he was in. Fei Fei's mind blanked. He was discovered. He was very experienced in battle and calmed down. He decisively activated his spell. His body blurred and he appeared on the verge of turning into a ball of mist. Fei Fei started with his life-saving ultimate technique, Smoke Travel Spell. Smoke Travel Spell was a 6th grade spell. It could turn a person's body into a ball of smoke that would dissipate. Once one turned to smoke, they could not attack the enemy, but the majority of attacks were ineffective against them. It was a top spell for escaping. This technique had saved Fei Fei an unknown number of times. So when he detected that the situation was not right, he immediately used the Smoke Travel spell. He could detect the threat from the dark gold Mo puppet. If he turned to light smoke, he could return to Shixiang's side. His smoke return pillar was on Shixiang's body. Yet just as he was about to successfully escape, the Mo puppet appeared in front of him. The black gold seal soldier stared at Fei Fei, whose body was becoming faint. His eyes were indifferent without any of the cheer that was just there. He reached out and an ancient character on his palm lit up. Fei Fei's eyes widened and terror showed on his face. The black gold seal soldier's hand already pressed onto Fei Fei, whose body was blurring, and then he quickly moved his palm away. The bright character was imprinted on Fei Fei's almost transparent body. Fei Fei's body melted at a visible rate like a snowman under a bright sun. Fei Fei's features twisted as he furiously screamed, but he couldn't make any sounds. The black gold seal soldier looked indifferently at him. Not 5 minutes later, Fei Fei completely disappeared. Clink. A light sound. It was ring that dropped to the ground from the smoke. The black gold seal soldier picked up the ring. The indifference on his face disappeared. He was full of smiles like before as he presented the ring to Agui. Fei Fei is dead. A hint of grief flashed through Lin Qian's eyes, but his tone was very cold. The other people stared at each other with sadness and terror in their eyes. Even though they all knew that the mission this time would be dangerous, no one had thought they would lose someone just after arriving in Great Peace City. Their start was not a good one. What that woman used was Shen power. Lin Qian's expression was calm as he said, she should have come for the Great Peace Steel as well. Everyone, be careful. Do not expose your identities before the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion appears. Yes. Everyone answered simultaneously, but it was apparent their morale had suffered. Lin Qian did not look at them and said to himself, the mission is very hard and dangerous this time. Even I do not have the confidence of victory. But our Kunlun's thousands of years of prosperity was won by our forebears through life and death struggles. Now, the world is uncertain, and these next few decades will determine the next 1,000 years. His gaze landed on the other people and his authority came through in his indifference. On matters related to the fate of Kunlun, how can we retreat? Everyone's expressions steadied. Most of them were born in Kunlun and had deep feelings towards Kunlun. Their families were also at Kunlun and their lives were deeply connected to Kunlun. One person said in a deep voice, eldest Shixiang is right, even if we die, we will have a place in the Kunlun's sword home. How can we, the people of Kunlun, fear those Yamo? At most, it is just another 1,000-year battle. Lin Qian did not speak. Morale rose and everyone's gazes became more determined. This time, those that were selected were all Yuanying experts. All of them had strong sword hearts and their spirits rose. When the noise faded, Lin Qian said with a small smile, even if that person recognized us, that is all right. Great Peace City is a gathering of many Mo factions and the complexity of the situation is almost unimaginable. These Mo all have their own plans and are suspicious about those around them. There are also people making waves from the shadows to muddy the waters. We are just one of the factors in Great Peace City. Some people will care about our identities, but there are also people that hope we have come to disrupt the situation and provide them with an opportunity. Everyone nodded and agreed when they heard this. So the plan will not change. The Celestial Planet Guard was in a furor. All the Mo steeds in the beast pens had disappeared. What was even more crazy was that there wasn't any signs of fighting near the beast pens. Shou Ping's face was black. Someone had come and stolen all the Mo steeds. This had actually occurred under his leadership. Miss hadn't said anything but Shou Ping was so ashamed he wanted to burrow into a crack in the ground. Nothing had happened to the other yards, only his steeds had been stolen from. Embarrassing. Too embarrassing. The Celestial Planet Guard had been at the bottom of the pack in cultivation. How could the proud Shou Ping tolerate something like this happening? The pitiful Celestial Planet Guards were tormented to death because of a glutton. But the culprit had forgotten about this matter. This is part of your plan. Nanmen Shui stared coldly at the person in front of him. This male shook his head. We did not do this. I do not believe it. Nanmen Shui said coldly, our partnership ends now. I have great doubts about your sincerity. The male's expression was normal. He still shook his head. We did not do this. We had sent people to capture Xiao Mo Gu, but he killed them. The disappearance of his subordinates has nothing to do with us. We are also investigating but there hasn't been any clues yet. Nanmen Shui stared at the other. Seeing that the other's expression did not change, he believed that the other had not lied. Now all clues point towards me, Nanmen Shui said coldly. Don't tell me you do not have other plans. We do, the male said gravely. We are now sure that Xiao Mo Gu is that crucial person. However, we are not the only ones to realize this, the other people probably also have as well. Nanmen Shui listened silently and did not speak. Right now, everyone is looking at Xiao Mo Gu. As long as we are not targeting Xiao Mo Gu, no one would care about us, the male said calmly, the waters of Great Peace City have started to muddy. He suddenly smiled. They are all staring at Xiao Mo Gu, so we will go find the other key to Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. You know who has the key? Nanem Shui was shocked. No. The male smiled slightly. We have a few targets. Nanmen Shui started at the other and suddenly said, is there anything I need to do? Of course. The male had a satisfied expression. You are an integral part of our plan. Then he told Nan Men Shui his plan in a lowered voice. Nan Men Shui's eyes were bright as he listened and nodded occasionally. The other's plan was outstanding. However, when the other finished telling him the plan, Nan Men Shui looked at the other and smiled. It is an outstanding plan. However, I want the fire heart gall. The other's brow furrowed. As long as you complete. Nan Men Shui shook his head. I want it now. The other's expression changed slightly. That is not possible. Really? Nan Shui smiled and said, your plan is so exquisite and detailed. If one part goes wrong, the whole plan falls apart. So many steps are related to me, I am a very important pawn. There is no benefit if you go back on your word. You will regret it. The other's face was dark as he gritted out. Fire heart gall or you lose, choose one. Nan Men Shui still smiled. Oh, right, I believe that you can also see that it is not a very easy matter if you want to withdraw from our partnership now. The other's complexion was ashen. Chapter 617, Little Landlord Great Peace Palace. Shi Yu's expression was stern. It was very rare to see such an expression on the normally gentle city master. The atmosphere inside the hall was tense. I know that many people have come to the city for the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion and I do not care in whose hands it ends up. My teacher once said that everything is up to fate. However, I never thought that even the sword Xiu of Kunlun would infiltrate into Great Peace City. This is a shock to me. Shi Yu's voice echoed in the large hall. Everyone had focused expressions and many showed expressions of shock. Shi Yu was Shi Ziming's student and technically the successor of Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. So, it was a shock to many to hear him be so indifferent about it. Great Peace Treasure Pavilion holds the product of my teacher's lifelong labor. I believe that no one can accept it ending up in the hands of Shouja. I have invited everyone here today to discuss how to eliminate these Shouja that have sneaked into Great Peace City. Here, I have to tell everyone that it isn't just Kunlun that has come into Great Peace City, but all four great sects. When the words came out, there was a furor. Everyone had shocked expressions. Great Peace City, it is us Mo's Great Peace City. Great Peace Treasure Pavilion, it is us Mo's Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. Shi Yu's words were like steel. The people agreed and the crowd was furious. The decision was quickly made that the large factions would eliminate the Shouja led by Kunlun and the one in command would be Princess Xia. Shi Yu had recommended her and she received support from everyone else. Princess Xia was intelligent and cunning. She herself also represented the Anwei family, and was the most suitable commander. An unprecedented mission quietly started. They still hadn't received any news about one and the others. This made Mo very restless. Darren, Qi Jiaoyu asks for a meeting, a subordinate reported. Mo stilled. Qi Jiaoyu. This guy had come to visit him. He turned to look at Tsing Lianer. Tsing Lianer shook her head. I don't know. He thought and then said, invite him in. Taking this opportunity, Mo asked Pu Yao in the Sea of Consciousness, Pu, what is this guy coming for? Possibly for an alliance, Pu Yao said gravely. No matter what, you do not need to worry. Mo thought and found that the words were right. Even if Qi Jiaoyu wanted to use force, Mo could completely suppress him while in this compound. With Agui and Tsing Lianer, the two assistants present, adding on himself, there were 3 people. Mo did not believe they could not defeat Qi Jiaoyu. He glanced at Wei. Ever since Wei saw the gravestone armor last time, he had sunk into silence. Mo speculated that Wei was thinking of past events. Or maybe he felt something after encountering one of his kind. Mo did not know how to comfort Wei. There was something that Pu Yao was right about. He really didn't have any interest in the gravestone armor. Even though he wasn't clear about what restraints the gravestone armor would place on him, but he was sure that there would be many restraints. He disliked being restricted. He quickly saw Qi Jiaoyu. It had to be said that Qi Jiaoyu had a very good appearance. With his snowy white robes and extraordinary beauty, his presence was stunning. Brother Qi hasn't changed at all. Suemo insincerely gave a greeting. I want to make a deal. Qi Jiaoyu did not waste a word and headed for the topic. What deal? Suemo also didn't mince words and asked straight out. Qi Jiaoyu looked at Suemo with star-like eyes. He said briskly, I will help you, and you will give me a copy of the stele inside the treasure pavilion. Now Suemo was slightly surprised. He looked at the other and asked amusedly, how do you know that I can enter the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion? It is not that you can, but you are the one most likely to, Qi Jiaoyu explained. Suemo understood a bit. He smiled and said, then what can you help me with? I can protect your life, Qi Jiaoyu said. Suemo stared at Qi Jiaoyu for a moment and then roared with laughter. Are you joking? Protect me? Can you beat her? He pointed at Tseng Lianer who was idly drinking tea by the side. Tseng Lianer focused on her tea and didn't even blink as though there was only empty air in front of her. Qi Jiaoyu glanced at Tseng Lianer. We are evenly matched. Suemo then pointed at Ague. Her. Ague was also unaffected. At the side, the black gold seal soldier, that glutton, lazily opened his eyes, examined Qi Jiaoyu and then closed his eyes with a relaxed expression. Qi Jiaoyu's gaze swept the black gold seal soldier. His eyelids flickered. We will be evenly matched. That's it, if you were very powerful, it would be fine if you make such a deal with me. But you don't even have the confidence to beat either of them. Even if I wanted to do business with you, I won't be able to get a good price. Suemo said with an expression of regret. I already have 2 experts. If one more is added, it can increase my strength, but won't bring me up another level. Also, it is very hard for me to trust you. You are asking for too much, but giving too little. I, Xiao Mo Gu, won't do such unprofitable business. I have information. Qi Jiaoyu forced himself to remain calm. Suemo spread his hands. But you are not the only one with that information, while I am the only one. Suemo said the last phrase meaningfully. Originally, he had wanted to take leave of the brewing storm as quickly as possible. He hadn't expected Wen and the others to disappear and force him to stay in this storm. Ever since he understood he became a key to entering the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion, he perceptively recognized the business potential here. What kind of business was the easiest to profit from? Of course it was the business where you had a monopoly. Suemo did not have any ambitions about the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. He knew that with so many eyes on them, whoever got the treasures would not be able to live. But he could take the chance to get rich. For those families, they wouldn't have any trouble paying a price to gain some advantages in this fight. So Suemo unhesitatingly refused Qi Jiaoyu's initial offer. What kind of joke was this? If his first transaction was so cheap, then the next customers definitely wouldn't give higher offers. Suemo seemed to have an instinctive obsession towards the pursuit of profit. Qi Jiaoyu was silent. The reason he had come to find Suemo today was that he detected this fight was becoming more cruel. He was just one person and couldn't affect the overall situation, so he thought of finding Suemo to work together. He hadn't thought that Suemo was more clever than he expected. There was a gentle and harmless smile on Suemo's face. When you have a suitable offer, you can come find me. Qi Jiaoyu glanced at Suemo and left without a word. Suemo smiled as he watched Qi Jiaoyu leave. He knew that the news that Qi Jiaoyu came here would spread over Great Peace City very soon. By that time, there would be even more customers. He really anticipated it. Zhuemo looked at the beautiful Princess Xia in front of him and grimaced. How come it is you? Why can't it be me? Princess Xia rolled her eyes. The unconscious flirtatious look would cause people's hearts to speed up. As Zhuemo resisted the illusory art, he continued to grimace and said, I was waiting for the others to come, and bleed them for a lot. Ha! Princess Xia laughed so hard her shoulders curled. Her finger pointed at Zhuemo. You are so bad, so bad. Zhuemo said with a serious expression. This is such a good chance. If I miss it, the heavens will strike me with lightning. Princess Xia laughed so much her hair dislodged from her hairdo. She panted slightly, which added a hint of mature seductiveness. She brushed the hair that had fallen down on her forehead and said with a smile, Don't you have any ideas about the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion? That is a matter for the big landlords to play with, I can't afford to play. Zhuemo said with a matter-of-fact expression. It is not worth it to lose my little life over that. A strange look flashed through Princess Xia's eyes. You see it clearly. Zhuemo said smugly, Of course. It would be unprofitable if I don't take the chance to make some more. But then his expression dropped. But since you came, I cannot do that. I owe you a favor from last time, I can't do that to you. Princess Xia smiled mischievously. I can't bear to use the favor for something like this. Then she copied Zhuemo's tone. It would be unprofitable. Zhuemo laughed. Why did you recommend me? Princess Xia suddenly asked something completely unrelated. Recommend you? Zhuemo stilled. Don't play dumb, Princess Xia said, City Master told me that you recommended me to him. Oh, that. Zhuemo realized. Because you are very strong. He added inside, especially in illusory arts. Strong. Princess Xia smiled. In your mind, I am such a schemer. Zhuemo scratched. I just felt that you are relatively smart. Then he couldn't help say, you definitely have to take those Kunlun people down, don't let them escape. With your personality, you wouldn't chase after them like this. It seems that they have offended you greatly, there definitely is something else. Princess Xia looked smilingly at Zhuemo's heart shook. This woman was too smart. He had to be careful. He could only play dumb. The two talked about various topics. Princess Xia had extraordinary knowledge. Other than the illusory arts that were automatically cast which made it difficult, it was very pleasurable to talk with her. However, Zhuemo didn't dare to drink this time. The Anwei family is very interested in you. Finishing, she took out a Mo weapon and placed it in front of Zhuemo. This Mo weapon was a short dagger axe. It was completely red and at the horizontal blade, there was a black eye. It caused the entire weapon to seem eerie. This crow-eye dagger axe was forged from the beak of a black fire crow Mo through hundreds of years of refining. It is very powerful and a top-notch Missouri weapon. Your Mo skill is fire type and this is suitable for you. How about it, are you satisfied? Zhuemo picked up the crow-eye dagger axe. Immediately, a vicious and vast presence passed from the dagger axe to his hand. He couldn't help but exclaim, a good Mo weapon. This is a meeting gift from the Anwei family, you do not need to return it. Princess Xia blinked her eyes at Zhuemo and giggled. With it as a good starting point, don't be kind when you bargain. Finishing, she waved at Zhuemo and left. Zhuemo was speechless. Chapter 618, Activations. Zhuemo's business was open. Ever since Princess Xia's visit, Zhuemo's estate had become a popular place. The families that thought themselves possessing some power, all offered olive branches to Zhuemo. All kinds of Mo weapons, all kinds of rare treasures, and some families were so generous as to even give jie to Zhuemo accepted them all. He was profusely grateful in words but did not mention anything else. These factions did not mention it either. This was just them feeling out the road. Zwemo was something rare, but nothing had started at this time. It was not the time for them to truly give their prices. As to these things, they were nothing to these large and powerful factions. Inside the estate, the gifts piled up in a mountain. There were many precious treasures, but Zwemo was not very happy. There was no news yet of a one and the others. They seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Zwemo had practically asked all the factions in Great Peace City but hadn't found anything. Luo Lishiti was still in seclusion. Zwemo was very worried about his condition. Sometimes, there would be a threat of life, but most of the time, there wasn't any vitality. The state of affairs in Great Peace City was complex. Even Zwemo could not predict which way it would develop. He was something rare and desired. In other words, everyone knew him. There were countless pairs of eyes staring at him openly and from the shadows. With the slightest misstep, he would die. What he was most worried about were a one and the others. This mastermind was able to remain so composed, and it put great pressure on Zwemo. He could only wait patiently. Other than waiting, there wasn't anything more he could do. Every day, he had to suppress the restlessness he felt, be patient, and cultivate. Yet at this time, an invitation from City Master Shi was delivered to him. When Zwemo arrived at a room hidden deep in the Great Peace Palace, there were already 8 people inside. The people greeted him when they saw him. Right now, everyone in Great Peace City knew that Zwemo was a person important to the opening of Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. All the families hoped to develop a closer relationship with him and had friendlier smiles. Shi Yui, Chang Yuanhao, Yishuang, Princess Ya, and the others were among those present. Moments later, more people came in. About an hour later, the room closed up. Zwemo looked around and inhaled in shock. This room contained almost all the important personages in Great Peace City. What was happening? Zwemo thought inside. The first to speak was Shi Yui. I have invited everyone today because we have intelligence on the Xiuzhe in Great Peace City. Then Princess Xia stood and bowed to the crowd. She said, those Xiuzhe are very well disguised. If it wasn't that they first lost to Mr. Xiao, it would really have been difficult to detect them. We secretly sent people to investigate all recent newcomers to the city and finally had a result today. However, there is trouble. Many of them are still hidden, and our investigations have already attracted their attention. The room was very quiet. The people present were all leaders and naturally could hold their composure. Princess Xia wasn't timid at all. She was at ease and her seductive eyes now flashed with an intelligent light. I suspect that Xiuzhe sects like Kunlun probably had spies in Great Peace City a long time ago. Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence that they knew that the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion is about to appear? Humph. These Xiuzhe still won't give up on eliminating us. Yishuang shorted coldly, his expression frosty. Princess Xia smiled and brimmed with strong confidence. Elder Yu is right, and we shall give them a memorable lesson. Princess, tell us what arrangements you have. On this matter, there is no reason for us to refuse, one person shouted. The others all agreed. Princess Xia's eyes turned. This plan requires the support of Mr. Xiao in order to proceed. Me? Zwemo pointed at his nose and looked dazedly at Princess Xia. Yes. Princess Xia blinked her eyes at him. You are not kind to drag me into this. Inside Princess Xia's residence, Zwemo waved his arms around in displeasure. Princess Xia was smiling in front of him. However, aren't you the person with the greatest grievance against Kunlun? How can this be called pulling you under the water? Princess Xia said innocently. Mirth flowed deep in her eyes. Zwemo was unable to form words. He had been the one urging this matter. Princess Xia was correct. But this completely disrupted his previous plans. He had originally wanted to help urge this matter forward and strike at Kunlun using the MO. But now, it became him going forward to give Kunlun a blow. How could he remain calm? Yes, he had a grievance against Kunlun. But if he went to make trouble for the other before he was strong enough, that was just throwing meat buns at the dogs. Suemo knew just how vicious Kunlun would be. Great Peace City was full of experts, but no one had the certainty of victory when facing Kunlun's experts. The Xiuzhou were stronger than the Yaoma, and Kunlun was the most powerful sect in the Xiuzhou realm. In other words, Kunlun was the strongest sect in the world. The other three great sects were also terrifying titans. Facing the experts sent by the four great sects, other than having an advantage in numbers and being in their territory, the MO didn't have any other advantages. This would be a hard battle. Suemo was able to imagine the ferocity of this battle, he could feel it even in his toes. If he wasn't careful, his little life would end. This was also why he wanted to borrow a blade to kill someone rather than going for it himself. Yet what he had never expected was that Princess Xia had put the most important step of the plan onto his shoulders. This almost caused him to spit blood. If this was someone else, Suemo would want to kill them. Almost as though she saw Suemo's concerns, Princess Xia comforted, "Do not worry, no one would let you die. You are very valuable right now. You did not see those people. They wanted to shove all their guards at you." Suemo's expression almost seemed to cry. "Don't force me in like this, I only have one life." Princess Xia burst into laughter. "As expected, you are cowardly and afraid of death. Adding on your shamelessness, you cannot be saved." "Yes, yes." Suemo's head bobbed like a chick eating rice. "I'm afraid of death. Very afraid. Princess Darren, please spare me. You truly want to pass upon a chance to capture them all in one go?" Princess Xia looked wryly at Suemo. "For you, I borrowed Xin and Wan's guards. They are all very powerful experts. Even Qi Jiaoyu agreed to help." Suemo's mind shifted upon hearing this. He thought of Princess Xin's guard, Xia, and Princess Wan's butler, Zhu Ku. These two were of unfathomable power. Nothing had to be said more of Qi Jiaoyu's power. He was a top power in Great Peace City. Adding on Chang Yuanhao and Yu Shuang, the team was pretty terrifying, and it should be enough to deal with Kunlun. If this was another time, it would not be an easy matter to gather so many experts together. Suemo gritted his teeth. "Fine." Princess Xia said smilingly, "You really have a deep grudge against Kunlun." Suemo was silent. He had to be even more careful when he spoke to this woman. However, he could feel that Princess Xia did not have malicious intentions, so he said honestly, "Yes, deep bloody grudge." Princess Xia was a little shocked, before smiling. She said gently, "Then you won't regret it." "I hope so." Suemo turned his face around. "How should I start?" Entering the Great Peace MO skill steals again, for some unknown reason, Suemo felt slightly emotional. This period of time had been like a dream, and too many things had happened. He didn't even have the time to sort out his thoughts. The events came one after the next, and he didn't even have a chance to breathe. How were one and the others now? Suemo's mind was heavy as he slowly walked between the steels. He was in a dispirited mood. Today, there were many people visiting the Great Peace MO steels. Ever since the news of the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion had spread, the number of people that were headed towards Great Peace MO steels had multiplied. Everyone wanted to find clues to the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion from these stone steels. As he thought, without realizing it, Suemo went deep into the steel forest. There were not many roaming around here. This was the deepest part of the steel forest. Every steel here was cryptic and profound. If one did not reach the stage, it would be indecipherable. Even the people that copied down the Great Peace Mo steels were too lazy to copy down all the contents here because for most people, they would never need such profound content their entire life. Ever since having an epiphany here, Mo had never come to the steel forest again. Walking here today, he started to browse these stone steels. The content on the stone steels was not unfamiliar to him. He had a complete copy of the Great Peace Mo steel writings, and had memorized the content. He did not understand all of it. He was just at the edge of domain, and there was still a long way off from reaching the peak of general. A lot of the content was very profound to him. Seeing the time was still early, he found a random stone steel and started to read phrase by phrase. Unconsciously, he immersed himself. What this stone steel was talking about was domain. Shi Ziming had his own understanding of domain. Mo seemed to see an old man talking enthusiastically in front of him. His body was so weak and withered that a wind could blow him over, but those eyes were unusually dark and bright. A moment later, Mo gradually recovered and everything returned to normal. The stone steel was silent. Where was the old man? Mo laughed. He had been too immersed, so much that he was seeing illusions. However, when he noticed the darkened sky in the surroundings, he found it was terrible. Not good. He had been too focused and forgot what he had come to do. A round silver ball appeared on his hand. There seemed to be a layer of light flowing around the silver ball. This silver ball was the most important part of the mission this time. He was about to crush the silver ball on his hand when he saw a row of characters on a stone steel out of the corner of his eye. He froze as though someone cast a body paralysis curse on him. He stood there motionless. Chapter 619, World, what is he doing over there? Lan Rong couldn't help asking. Lan Tianlong was also slightly confused. He looked at Mo that was in a daze between the steels and said uncertainly, did he drink today? He probably wouldn't have. Such an important event today. Lan Rong's expression was slightly ugly. He suddenly recalled what had happened after Mo had got drunk at the Great Peace Palace last time and the rest of his words faded. The two Lan brothers looked at each other with strange expressions. Behind them, a smile came onto Princess Xia's face. She turned and ordered, tell them, pay attention to what is happening. A servant silently left. Xiao Mo Gu is young but he can keep his composure. Yu Shuang couldn't resist praising. Princess Xia brushed away some locks of hair on her forehead and smiled, one that isn't composed cannot lure out those shouja. They have come in alone and it is shocking how long they have prepared for this. There probably are many of them in Great Peace City. If we are not careful, our plan will fail. Yu Shuang smiled and said, Princess Xia is peerless. Even I would fall for this. City Master Shi is probably stirring them into an uproar right now. In Princess Xia's plan, Shi Yue would gather the major factions inside the city today, to discuss how to deal with the shouja. He would make a big furor and gather all the factions inside Great Peace City. However, the true experts would be hidden near the Great Peace Mo steels. The bait for the entire plan was Mo. Any faction with some power knew that Mo was a crucial piece of how to get into the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. Even though no one knew the reason, there were countless eyes that stared at every action Mo made. The shouja would definitely be paying attention as well. He quietly appeared at the steel forest and pretended to appear as though he was searching. If these experts did not know Princess Xia's plan beforehand, they would definitely think that Mo was searching for the entrance to the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. He also lingered for a whole afternoon and had waited long enough for the shouja to gather. Mo had a star-luring Mo ball. This star-luring Mo ball was one personally made by Shi Yue. It only had one use, it could cause one star to fall from the sky. There would be great noise, and the MO matrices inside the great piece MO steel would activate at the same time to create an illusion the great piece treasure pavilion was about to appear. This was the bait to lure the Shouja. Princess Xia gave the Shouja a dilemma. If they were slightly hesitant, they would lose the opportunity. Even if the Shouja knew this was a trap, would they gamble on it? This was actually a psychological battle. What Princess Xia gambled was that even though the Shouja had sent people in before this, the spies of the Shouja would not be able to penetrate the upper ranks of major MO families. Only a few knew of this plan. Those that knew were the leaders of each clan. It was very unlikely for people like this to be spies for the Shouja. They were coming in alone, and without sufficient intelligence. Facing such a realistic trap, there wasn't much room for the Shouja to choose. Princess Xia wanted to use this plan to get all the Shouja in one swoop. The place that they were hiding was very hidden and at the edge of the steel forest. This was the place where the Anwei family usually spied from. For this mission, Princess Xia really paid a great price. The plan was not complex, but all the elders praised it. If it was them, there was a high possibility that they would also be fooled. This is because of the support from all the elders, Princess Xia said with a smile. Chang Yuanhao suddenly moved forward a few steps. At the same time, a strange look flashed across Yu Shuang's eyes. Everyone's gaze moved towards Sua Mo inside the steel forest. Qi Jiaoye's expression changed slightly as his eyes lit up. He stared hard at Sua Mo. The blurry figure in the distance suddenly emanated an indescribable feeling of danger. This guy, what was going on? When consciousness and Ling power reach an extreme depth of the body, the world will reappear. The short phrase placed in the corner of the steel was not eye-catching at all. This stone steel was discussing the three powers, and this phrase was not something attention-catching among the text. However, what attracted Sua Mo's attention was the word world in this phrase. This word was in a different writing than all the other steel text, as though someone had written it on the steel with a finger. Sua Mo had browsed through almost all the Mo skill steels. All of the content on the steels had used the same style of writing and were exquisitely carved. If one did not notice the word world, they would have missed it. Even if one noticed, they would have thought that someone had made a mistake when engraving this steel and then corrected it. But when Sua Mo noticed the strangeness of this part, he froze where he stood. Because he understood this phrase. When consciousness and Ling power reach an extreme depth of the body. He had used this technique when he had modified the Mo matrices for Bihan's Sin Battalion. When consciousness and Ling power reached deep into the body, the world would truly become different. He would enter a wondrous state where he was calm and emotionless. Truthfully, Sua Mo did not like this state, but this state gave him the feeling of being inhuman. He was like a puppet that did not have life or emotion. He would be precise, but without any spirit. When world was put into this phrase, it caused his mind to shift. Did this world have another meaning? Sua Mo thought for a moment and then decided to try it. He channeled and the sons of the 10 Crow celestial apparatus lit up. His consciousness and Ling power continuously moved deeper into his body. His mind started to become cold, his emotions seemed to be bared in an extreme environment without any warmth. His eyes became cold and indifferent, his emotions quickly disappearing. A thin layer of gold light appeared, but there was also a hint of white. A new world appeared in front of him. Countless half-transparent lines crisscrossed between the stone steels. The entire steel forest was like a cage made from countless lines of light. The stunning scene in front of Sua Mo did not cause any change in emotions. He moved his head, his eyes were emotionless, as he looked at the surroundings. A faint handprint appeared on some of the stone steels. The stone steels which had handprints were the stone steels where the most threads intersected. He did not pause. He walked in front of a stone steel and pressed his hand on the faint handprint on the stone steel. An extremely light tremor came to his hand as though there was a tremble very deep in the earth. It was unusually small. If Swa-mo wasn't in this state, he definitely would not have detected it. Swa-mo could accurately capture every ripple. The ripples had an unique rhythm. In this state, Swa-mo's mo skill was at its maximum. Without even thinking about it, the muscles in his hands trembled and responded to the stone steel with the same rhythm. The trembling of the stone steel suddenly stopped. In Swa-mo's eyes, it suddenly became bright. Countless streaks of light flowed into the other steels along the half-transparent lines like water flowing outwards. Swa-mo's expression was indifferent as he appeared in front of another stone steel which had a handprint. Those inside cannot send anything out. A shitty next to Lin Qian shook his head. He tried his best to communicate with eyes, but there hadn't been any results. Eyes had been summoned to Great Peace City to discuss how to deal with the Shuzha. But the Great Peace Palace was blocked off from all communication with the outside. They could not pass any messages out. It seems that these mo are not stupid, another shitty said with a smile. He smirked coldly and said, trying to redirect our attention so crudely like this, they really underestimate us. Lin Qian's eyes were suspicious. He suspected this could possibly be a trap. All of their information was supposedly broadcast by Xiao Mo Gu. They had learned that the mysterious woman they had fought with when they entered the city had been Xiao Mo Gu's personal maid. Fei Fei probably lost his life when he entered the other's residence. No matter from what angle, Xiao Mo Gu had enough reasons to want to deal with them. It wasn't as though it was unlikely for him to plan such a trap. But what surprised Lin Qian was what happened when he saw Xiao Mo Gu the first time. This was the first time he saw Xiao Mo Gu. Even though he had heard this name countless times before. In the report from Eyes, Xiao Mo Gu was a crucial part of opening the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. He had caused the shifting star sands, defeated Shen Yu who had comprehended the Peacock King plume, obtained the reverse stellar revolution, reached the edge of domain, and was a genius youth that had recently attracted attention in Great Peace City. Lin Qin was the first-ranked disciple among the third-generation disciples of Kunlun. He knew more than most people. He noticed that Xiao Mo Gu's name had also appeared in the intelligence reports from the Yao. It had also been a youth called Xiao Mo Gu who was a young battle general that defeated Gold Battle General Corps Commander Yu Hang, completed a prison-breaking battle, and astounded the Yao realm. He suspected that these two were the same person. If they really were the same person, then it was frightening. Such a monstrous person would be rare even in Kunlun which was full of geniuses. So the moment that he saw Xiao Mo Gu's name from Eyes report, Lin Qian decided, no matter what, he had to kill this person. When he thought about the consequences a person with such potential in the Yamua camp would bring, he couldn't restrain his murderousness. But when he saw Xiao Mo Gu, he was very shocked. Because he felt a strange sense of familiarity from Xiao Mo Gu. He was sure he had never seen this face before, but this sense of familiarity was so clear. He had definitely interacted with Xiao Mo Gu before. When a person reached cultivation of his level, a wrong feeling would almost never appear. The sword essence he cultivated was profound and he knew that his sword heart would not lie to him. Yet when he thought it over in his mind, he could not understand where he had seen Xiao Mo Gu before. It was a pity there was no time. Lin Qian sighed inwardly. If he was meditating, and his sword heart was clear, he would definitely identify the other. He quickly threw the stray thoughts to the back of his mind. He looked at Swa Mo with a sword-sharp gaze. Suddenly, his expression changed. In his eyes, Xiao Mo Gu's presence suddenly changed dramatically. In Lin Qian's eyes, Xiao Mo Gu was like a Mo puppet, empty and cold. This was. Lin Qian was shocked and suspicious. Then he saw Xiao Mo Gu reach for a stone steel. A moment later, Lin Qian's expression changed drastically. There was movement deep within the earth. Chapter 620, lie becoming truth, this place is quite ghastly. Ming Ju Zi muttered. They had been trapped for so many days and still hadn't found the exit. The Black Smoke Yao said with self-recrimination, "It is all my fault. If it wasn't for me." "Old Black, that's all right, this might be our good fortune." Nan Yu hurriedly comforted the Black Smoke Yao. "There are many people outside that want to come in, they wouldn't expect that we got ahead of them." Tsang Zhe added with a smile, "Old Black, think hard. We are putting our hopes on you to find the treasures." Wen was slightly worried, "There is no way to enter the 10-finger prison from here. Darren would definitely have gone there to look for us." Everyone was silent. The orange-haired Yao spoke up, don't worry, he is loyal, he won't abandon us. Worst case, we will find a few more treasures and give him a few." "Where are there any treasures?" Ming Ju Zi looked around and said dispiritedly. "This place is dark, and I doubt we are even in the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. We've been searching around for so long and still haven't found the exit." That day, the Black Smoke Yao had made a discovery and came excitedly to find them. They had gone in search following the clues, and hadn't expected to fall into a maze that was pitch black. The maze was dark and didn't have anything. However, the paths were complex and intercrossed like a spider web. They had been searching for the exit for the past few days but hadn't made any progress. "We are below the Mo skill steals, is there another place here except the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion?" Tsang Ze's expression was puzzled. "Who knows?" The orange-haired Yao said carelessly. "That old man has been dead for so many years. Do not be disrespectful to Grandmaster Shi Zi Ming." Wen glared at the orange-haired Yao. "We have benefited from him these past days. If not for the Grandmaster, where would these Mo skill steals come from?" The orange-haired Yao was not angry and muttered, "I didn't say that he wasn't good, but if he is a good person, he should be good to the end. He engraved the Mo skill steals, and he should give us some treasures as well. Then he would be a good person. A very good person. Oh, don't worry, I won't take them all." The other people were used to the orange-haired Yao's casual and thoughtless words. Everyone laughed. The Black Smoke Yao's brow was tightly furrowed. Ever since they had dropped into this pitch-black maze, he had been thinking of ways to get out. It was because of him that everyone had ended up in this predicament. Even though no one blamed him, he could not forgive himself. Fortunately, there weren't any dangers in the maze, so they were not very nervous. Ever since they entered the maze, the Black Smoke Yao had been pondering why there would be a maze under the Mo skill steals. He believed that a person like Shi Zi Ming would have his own reasons for doing every single thing. This maze would definitely have another purpose. If that was the case, it should have an exit. His spirit consciousness spread out as he carefully searched the surroundings. In such a dark environment, the consciousness was much more useful than the eyes. Suddenly, his consciousness swept a rock and he abruptly stopped moving. "Wait!" Everyone stopped warily. "What is it?" Nan Yu asked. "We passed by this rock yesterday." The Black Smoke Yao crouched down and picked up a rock by his foot. His tone was unusually certain. "It is this one, I remember it clearly. Have we been going in circles all this time?" Nan Yu was slightly shocked. "Very possible." The Black Smoke Yao raised his head to look up. "We might just be wandering in circles below the Mo skill steals." Then he said to himself, "So this is a recursive maze. The path we pick each time is different, but we are still going in circles. All paths lead to one. Oh, I understand." He suddenly moved his gaze and said to the orange-haired Yao. "Big Orange, hit the ground a few times." The orange-haired Yao immediately became energized. He had been suffocated these past few days. He rolled up his sleeves. "No problem. How big of a hole? How deep? I will show you guys a new Yao art that I comprehended recently. It is the best at making holes. If you want a circle, I won't give you a square." If you want 3 zhang, I won't make it 5 zhang. Ooh, do you want something slightly more difficult? Flower shape. Too common. Or maybe a portrait. Nan Yu and the others were speechless. But Awen was excited. Such a powerful Yao art. How about we compete? I recently comprehended some things as well. The orange-haired Yao was excited and hurriedly ran in front of Awen. Alright, let's compete. Let's make a portrait. Alright. Awen was excited as well. 5 zhang deep is good. But everyone disregarded the black smoke Yao's weak voice. Everyone's attentions were put on these two that were going to make portraits. Nothing more had to be said about Awen's talent. The orange-haired Yao appeared absent-minded and slightly odd, but his talent in the Yao arts was usually unexpected. He could always make some strange and weird Yao arts. Who do you think will win? Ming Ju Zi was full of interest. Nan Yu said, Awen. Zhang Zhe hesitated and said, Big Orange. Ming Ju Zi looked at the black smoke Yao. The black smoke Yao said helplessly, Big Orange. Ming Ju Zi snickered. I favor Awen, 2 on 2. The orange-haired Yao postured as though he was an expert, hand palm up, he beckoned at Awen. Young man, I will not go easy on you. However, young man, your life will become more complete after losing to this loyal orange-haired Yao. Awen stared back, not backing down. Come on. Red-haired monster, let me show you what the first expert of guard camp is like. Looking at Zhuo Mo's ghostly figure and indifferent expression, everyone felt danger that could not be pushed away. Every one of them had grave expressions. Those present were all experts and naturally could see the change in Zhuo Mo. Princess Xia's lips were tightly pressed together and her expression changed slightly. Xiao Mo Gu in the distance seemed to have changed into a completely new person that she felt extremely unfamiliar with. However, she quickly suppressed the stray thoughts in her mind. Xiao Mo Gu was the crucial part of the entire plan. His change would affect the plan hugely. Up until now, Xiao Mo Gu had not used the star-luring Mo bead in his hand, and he was moving in ways that people did not understand. Princess Xia suddenly had a realization. Xiao Mo Gu had found the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. Once this thought appeared, her expression became ashen. Her previous plan had been to create an illusion that the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion was about to appear in order to lure the Xiuzha out. She had never thought the act would become truth. Once the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion appeared, the entire plan would be full of flaws. The morale of the Xiuzha would be at their highest and their counterattack would be unusually fierce. On the opposite side, the MO experts would be targeting the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion so they would each have their own plans. The alliance would fall apart. Under such circumstances, the plan that had been flawless would become a mess. At that time, this place would become a melee battle. Melee battles were the most advantageous for the Xiuzha. What worried her even more was Xiao Mo Gu, who would be at the center of the melee battle, would be placed in the most dangerous situation. Her expression quickly recovered and she said indifferently, the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion is about to open. The plan has changed. Everyone, charge in, and keep the Xiuzha out. Princess Xia's words caused everyone to shake. They looked in disbelief at Princess Xia. Their attention had been on Xiao Mo Gu's transformation. While they had felt that his actions were slightly strange, no one had connected them to the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. Princess Xia's gaze flashed across the pairs of eyes that had started to burn. She combed her hair and smiled, everyone, be careful of Xiao Mo Gu's safety. If those Xiuzha want to act against Xiao Mo Gu because they are unable to get the treasures, they might ruin this for all of us and then we won't have anything. He is still useful now, and at such an important time, I hope that the elders present will not hold anything back. Everyone's gazes met and then moved away. Yu Shuang stood up and said with a smile, we need to show something to these Xiuzha. Otherwise, they will think that there are none capable among us Mo. They dare to come and go as they wish, do they think this is their backyard? The other people also rose. Chang Yuanhao and Yu Shuang walked together. The guards led by Xia protected Princess Xian and the guards led by Zhu Ku protected Princess Wan. Qi Diao Yu was moving by himself. In a flash, the alliance fell apart and each camp was clearly divided. You have intentions about him? The middle-aged attendant beside Princess Xia suddenly spoke. Princess Xia glanced at her and asked back, "What do you feel? Then why are you helping him?" The middle-aged attendant stared at Princess Xia and said coldly, "You know very well that if you enter this conflict, you will have nothing to do with him anymore." Princess Xia smiled slyly. Don't you feel that it is to our advantage to direct their attention towards Xiao Mogu? The middle-aged attendant's expression eased slightly. She said coldly, "Don't do anything stupid." Princess Xia seemed to not hear it. She raised her head to look at Xiao Mogu that was reaching towards a stone steel and suddenly said, "You just couldn't wait." The middle-aged attendant's expression froze. The steel in front of him was the last Mo skill steel that had a handprint. The half-transparent thin threads in his vision were as bright as rays of light. Ripples moved along these crisscrossing lines like waves against the shore that came from all directions towards this stone steel. The moment that Zhuomo's palm came into contact with this steel, a strong vibration pulsed from the stone steel. Even the ground under his feet seemed to be violently shaking. There seemed to be an ancient being which was suppressed here that seemed to shift. Zhuomo's expression was cold and indifferent, void of all expression. In response to the enormous tremors that came from the stone steel, the muscles on Zhuomo's plan were quickly vibration at an astounding rate. At this moment, all lights stopped at the simultaneously. But in the next second, the lights that had paused seemed to be startled away and then redirected towards the steel from all directions. Boom! A ray of white light suddenly came out of the stone steel. Like a ruler-straight sword of light, it pierced the sky and entered the void. The white light was like a burning flame that moved towards all directions. In a flash, all of the Mo skill steels released a fierce white light. The ground was trembling fiercely, all of Great Peace City was trembling. Great fissures started to appear on the ground around the steel forest. Then the steel forest started to slowly rise. Boom boom boom. The steel forest that was covered in rays of light slowly rose. There seemed to be an enormous beast underneath it that was pushing it up. That blinding ray of white light was like a rope that was pulling the steel forest up. And beside that ray of light, a cold and indifferent figure gazed down at the ground under the white light. Chapter 621, One Sword Strike from Lin Qian. Start! Start! A Wen and the orange-haired Yao shouted at the same time and moved simultaneously. A Wen's eyes were widened, the black plumes on his armor stood on end and vibrated in unison. He was slightly crouched, his arms pushed out as though he was about to hug someone, as he breathed and suddenly pushed down. The ground under his feet soundlessly sank. A deep hole with smooth walls was formed. It was as though there was a diagram on the ground made with a tool, the outline was clear and sharp. The orange-haired Yao shouted strangely. Lightning flashed across his body and crackled. His orange hair exploded into a poof. It was hilarious to watch because he was still shaking and swaying his head. The ground underneath him was crumbling and disappearing at a visible rate underneath his feet. The hole's outline traced out a picture of woman appeared in front of everyone. Nan Yu and the others were stunned. They all had admiration in their eyes. These two were clearly a level above the rest of them. These were two freaks. When a one had acted, they hadn't detected one vibration at all. The outline was so clear, the lines looked as sharp as if cut by a blade. It showed just how stunning A Wen's control of power was. They found that they understood even less about the orange-haired Yao's Yao art. It had actually caused the dirt to crumble from the inside. Even though it was lightning, it was corrosive and uncanny. Hey, youth, you aren't too bad. The orange-haired Yao was slightly shocked. Humph. Next time, I will defeat you. Owen said, undaunted. Under the shocked gazes of everyone else, the two started to compete fiercely again. Each working on their portrait. Isn't this a goe? Young person, so you have been secretly pining for a goe? The orange-haired Yao pointed at the portrait under Owen's feet as he shouted. Idiot. You need to call her a goe Darren. Owen glared angrily and then snorted coldly. A goe Darren's beauty isn't something that a common person like you can understand. A goe is a good girl, but not a beauty. The orange-haired Yao shook his head and said smugly, what I drew is a beauty. Owen stared for a long time at the drawing under the orange-haired Yao's feet. His expression suddenly became slightly strange as he muttered, why does your portrait seem a bit like old black? The black smoke Yao's body trembled and then he charged over. The orange-haired Yao had a smug expression. Young person, you are right. In the past, old black frequently cross-dressed in the Yao art house, and bewitched many men. The black smoke Yao's eye twitched continuously. What had happened in the past was something he was unwilling to mention. This damned person. He was on the edge of losing his temper. The other people retreated perceptively and looked sympathetically at the black smoke Yao. Just as the black smoke Yao was going to explode, there were violent tremors from the ground. Almost everyone was unable to stay standing up. Whoa whoa whoa. Did we dig through the maze? The orange-haired Yao had an excited expression. Idiot. The other people whose expressions had changed couldn't help but curse at him simultaneously. The shaking of the ground increased in intensity. A great noise came from deep within the ground like an ancient beast that was waking up from its slumber. Damn it. The ground is rising up. The black smoke Yao's expression changed dramatically. Everyone's expressions abruptly changed. With the MO appearing, Lin Qian no longer doubted that the stunning scene in front of him was a trap. That ray of light that shot straight into the sky and the vibrations that came with it was enough to show the terrifying power it contained. This power was so strong that even Lin Qian felt his heart tremble slightly. In this moment, he felt some respect for Grandmaster Shi Ziming who he had never met before. In a blink, his gaze became clear again and that ripple in his mind disappeared without a trace. He did not think further on who Xiao Mo Gu was. At this moment, that was not important. Crack. The air around him suddenly exploded. The dense sword essence spread into the surroundings without any more concealment. In this moment, he was like a treasure sword that was drawn from its sheath, no longer concealed its sharp edge. Around him, every person showed excitement as their fighting spirit rose. The sword essences gave off different colors of light. Each person was like a sword wanting to drink the blood of their enemies. Does everyone remember the plan? Lin Qian looked around and asked. Yes. All of them were solemn. This mission is related to the glory and decline of our Kunlun. We may break our bones and our bodies, but we will not retreat. Lin Qian's expression was determined. No one could look directly at his burning eyes. He slowly drew out his flying sword. Will not retreat. The group responded in unison with serious expressions. Fanatic flames flashed through their eyes as their flying swords appeared in their hands. Lin Qian turned around and suddenly raised the flying sword in his hand. He shouted, for Kunlun. All of his Ling power suddenly boiled and his presence rose to a peak. In the night, his sword essence was like a tangible burning flame. Within the darkness, in this land of the Mo, he displayed his power without any fear. Lin Qian's fighting spirit and enthusiasm infected every Kunlun sword show. The fiery passion they felt caused their Ling power to boil. All of their terror and timidness disappeared. Fighting spirit burned every inch of their skin and they reflexively shook. At this moment, for Kunlun, even if they were to die, they would not frown one bit. They raised their flying swords in unison and shouted, for Kunlun. Before the sound dissipated, Lin Qian flew into the sky first. He turned into a sword light that tore the night sky as he shot towards the steel forest that was rising up. The other people saw this and moved without hesitation. In this moment, the sword howls were like a tide and the lights were like rain. The force that the pillar of light gave off as it rose disturbed the air. The turbulence caused Zhuomo's clothing to flap in the wind. He looked down. He saw the Mo experts that were flying over, and the blinding sword lights. He saw the experts from the other sects that had sneaked into the city. That pair of emotionless eyes looked indifferently at all of this. His Mo skill had been channeled to an extreme, while his consciousness and Ling power were still streaming deep into his body. This icy world became increasingly clear in front of him. The rest of the steel forest was continuously rising and the spot he was standing in had started to sink. The steel in front of him was the entrance to the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. Treasure Pavilion's entrance. Someone shouted and this caused a ruckus. The area that was sinking was very small and not even 2 zhang in radius. Watching as Zhuo slowly sank down, the experts that were rushing forwards felt even more urgent. Even the sword lights from Kunlun sped up and the howl from the swords increased in volume. Take control of the entrance. Yu Shuang shouted. The other Mo hesitated slightly and then made their decision. They gritted their teeth and leapt at the incoming sword lights. If Kunlun gained control of the entrance, no one would be able to enter. The disciples of the other 3 great sects moved at the same time, but their presence was lacking compared to Kunlun. Almost all the Mo targeted Kunlun. Facing the Mo that was charging at him, Lin Qian was fearless. With a clear hum, the sword light grew. The high-pitched howl suddenly became low and deep. Like a meteor crashing down from the sky, it smashed towards its enemies. Protect eldest Xixiang. The sword Xiu that had been following behind Lin Qian suddenly increased in speed. Like a flower blooming, they drew out elegant curves as they moved to intercept the other Mo experts. They did not pay any attention to the enemy in front of Lin Qian. Everyone had absolute confidence in eldest Xixiang. The person in front of Lin Qian was Yu Shuang. Yu Shuang's pupils contracted into pinpoints. The other did not have any room to retreat, and his sword essence was determined. He shouted, "Come!" His body was immediately covered in green Mo matrices. The green Mo matrices were unusually beautiful, the lines thin and complex. The entire Mo matrix looked like a blooming green flower. With Yu Shuang as the center, the complex and fine blue flower matrix spread into the surroundings. Bright pink roses bloomed from these green matrices and it was beautiful to see. This was Yu Shuang's rose greenery domain. Suddenly, all the roses shook slightly. The petals crumbled soundlessly. In a moment, the pink roses around Yu Shuang turned into a sea of flower petals. The pink rose petals were torn into pieces and slowly became green at a visible rate. Whoosh! The green rose petal pieces seemed to be caught in a wind. It turned into a green flower wind that headed towards Lin Qian. The Mo that noticed this all felt their hearts shake. Yu Shuang's first move was his famed killing move, Green Flower Rain. There was a strange energy field between every green flower petal. The innumerable flowers that appeared in the flurry of petals was the result of the countless fields overlapping on each other. It formed a terrifyingly powerful bog. Once one was trapped inside it, even the strongest power would be restrained by the energy fields. It was like being trapped in a bog. The person would move slower and slower until they were unable to move. Countless numbers of people had fallen to the green flower rain. As Yu Shuang's power increased and his fame spread, it was rare for people to see this green flower rain. So when the Mo saw Yu Shuang's green flower rain, they became excited. The unique and strange power of green flower rain was the bane of the sharp sword essences. They seemed to see this sword Xiu being tangled up like an insect in a spider web. The fighting spirit in Lin Qian's eyes heated up. The flying sword in his hand seemed to feel his excitement and uncontrollably hummed to respond to its master. The flying sword in Lin Qian's hand was not an ordinary one. It was the famed sword, Taya. The body of the sword was like a clear spring and exceptionally nimble. Facing the rain of green flowers coming at him, a burning light lit up at the tip of Taya. It seemed to be a spark created by Taya scraping against the air. What was strange was that the sword did not turn red, but became even clearer and transparent as though it was made of ice. Lin Qian's left eye was as red as fire, and his right eyes as blue as ice. Hiss! Like a sharp blade slicing through cotton cloth. The resilient and sticky green flower rain was cleaved apart by this single sword blow. Yu Shuang gave a muffled grunt. His eyes were filled with shock and fear. A thread of blood slipped from the corner of his mouth. One move. He was defeated in one move by Lin Qian. Who was this person? His one strike shook all of the Great Peace City. Zhuo Mo was unaffected, as he slowly sunk into the ground looking indifferently at Lin Qian's stunning blow. Chapter 622, Anti-Dragon Claw. Lin Qian's single sword strike had intimidated the entire battlefield. Yu Shuang was ranked second on the Great Peace Mo ranking. In 100 Savage Realm, he was a top-ranked expert, but he was wounded by a single blow. Lin Qian was still midair as he held Taya. The light at the tip of Taya was as bright as the sun. There wasn't any of his usual gentleness. His red and blue eyes were filled with pride, arrogance, and disdain as he slowly glanced over everyone. His movements were extremely slow, but it held a suffocating pressure. No one dared to meet his gaze. The entire battlefield was silent. The MO of Great Peace City lost their nerve after seeing Lin Qian's sword strike. All of the Kunlun disciples looked with heated gazes at eldest Shixiang, who in turn was looking down at all present. They felt excited and wanted to roar. Kunlun. We are Kunlun. Eldest Shixiang's peerless stature as though he ruled the world was deeply imprinted in their minds. I have not asked for Sir's name. Chang Yuanhao's voice broke the silence. Everyone finally woke up from their shock and looked at this youth holding the sword. Even the disciples of the other three sects had ashen complexions as they looked at Lin Qian, who was like a god of the sword in the air. Floating in the air, Lin Qian did not seem to hear this. He descended step by step with his sword drawn, walking as though there were invisible stairs under his feet. He was at ease, but no one dared to block him. Suddenly, three figures appeared before Lin Qian and stopped him in his steps. Zhu Ku, Xia, and the middle-aged attendant. Ah, these old bones of mine are going to get damaged today. Zhu Ku said to himself smilingly. Xia did not say a word, but the long spear in his hand suddenly flicked up. The middle-aged attendant looked at Lin Qian with a dark face. Lin Qian did not pause. He walked down from the sky as though he didn't see the three at all. As Suomo's figure slowly sank into the ground, the sound outside was blocked off. He entered a new world. Half-transparent threads crossed in the air. Other than these threads, there was nothing else in the surroundings. Some of the threads formed a path that seemed to be made out of spiderwebs. Suomo's field of vision. Suomo advanced following the path. With every step, a MO matrix would appear out of the emptiness and support his foot. The spiderweb path spread into the distance and it was possible to see thin threads along the way. Suomo noticed these thin threads seemed to be gathering in one direction and the same direction as the spiderweb path. As he moved forward, this became even more evident. Even now, Suomo did not know what these thin threads were, and why he could only see them in this state. The thin threads increased in density. Suomo suddenly stopped in his steps. He lifted his head. The scene in front of him caused a ripple even in his present state of mind. A claw was tangled up by countless threads in the air. This claw was enormous. It was like a high mountain peak reaching into the clouds. Even looking from a distance, he could feel its peerless enormity. In front of this enormous claw, Zhuo Mo was as minuscule as an ant. But what truly had caused a stir in Zhuo Mo's mind was not the enormity of this enormous claw but that he had seen this enormous claw before. Anti-dragon claw. This is impossible. Wei and Pu Yao's exclamations sounded at the same time. Zhuo Mo had seen this dragon claw before. When Wei he had disguised himself as his previous master, he held a claw that was identical to this, except it was smaller than. The anti-dragon claw had landed in Shi Ziming's possession. Pu Yao murmured. He looked dazedly at the mountainous anti-dragon claw and a glimmer of tears appeared in his eye. Many distant scenes appeared in front of him. That peerless beautiful face that had changed his entire life was so clear. Even the years which could corrode anything didn't seem to have left any mark on it. Wei was silent, his face sorrowful and reminiscing. Zhuo Mo suddenly stepped towards the anti-dragon claw. Stop! Quick, stop! Don't go near it. Pu Yao and Wei were frightened by Zhuo Mo's action. Their expressions changed and they warned him. But Zhuo Mo seemed to be possessed and didn't hear their shouts. His steps did not falter at all as he continued to walk towards the mountainous anti-dragon claw. Boom! 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 The rhythmic beating grew clearer until it shook people's minds. As Zhuo Mo went closer, the power of the beating increased. The source was the anti-dragon claw. It seemed to have a heart that was continuously beating. When Zhuo Mo walked under the anti-dragon claw and raised his head, he truly felt the colossal nature of it. That peerless pressure caused his mind to waver. But Zhuo Mo's eyes were tranquil, cold and indifferent. It was alive. When Zhuo Mo's hand touched the anti-dragon claw, he could clearly feel the terrifying power and strong vitality contained underneath the scales harder than metal, as well as deep unwillingness. Don't move it, it is not something you can use now. Pu Yao's voice was so urgent it changed in pitch. Zhuo Mo did not seem to hear Pu Yao. The half-transparent threads in his vision seemed fragile but securely restrained the anti-dragon claw so that it was unable to move at all. Wei said rapidly, the anti-dragon claw is one of the 10 celestial Mo weapons, it is not something that you can subdue now. Only martials are able to subdue them. Master had been a martial and almost lost her life when subduing this. The anti-dragon claw seemed to hear Pu Yao and Wei's words. Zhuo Mo could feel the claw laughing at him for reaching far beyond his limits. Its heart was beating even more heavily. Vast power spread from it and the thick strands were unable to block off all of it. Thin threads that reached into the dark void would shake with every pulse, every beat. This power would reach into distant places. However, no matter how strong the anti-dragon claw was, it could not break free of the tens of thousands of slender threads. Zhuo Mo's expression did not change at all. His upraised face was cold and indifferent, and his eyes were icy. His gaze landed on a part of the anti-dragon claw. Within his vision, that was the place where there was the most threads. He suddenly flew up and gazed at the layers of thin threads. He suddenly reached out and pushed into this ball of thin threads. Pu Yao and Wei's faces became ashen. Suddenly, the anti-dragon claw stopped beating. The entire space sank into a silence. All vibrations, all sound, even the light on the thin strands stopped moving. A moment later, the entire space started to shake violently. Boom boom boom. All of the thin threads were violently trembling, every single thread. In this instant, even the anti-dragon claw gave off a nervous vibration. Suddenly, a legend that Pu Yao had almost forgotten flashed through his mind. A disbelieving look suddenly came out of his eyes as he blurted, "This is..." Boom! The space started to crumble. Lin Qian's hair was disarrayed and the light of the Taya sword in his hand was dim. The three experts had worked together to successfully stop his advance. All three of the experts were unfathomable in their power. They were not famous, but they were the strongest within their respective families. You should be proud to be able to force the three of us together. Zhu Ke's tone carried a thread of admiration. Before today, he had never thought that he would work with the two beside him to attack a young sword Xiao that was in his 20s. It had been more than a decade since he had fought, much less with the other two by his side. Such a great genius, even he had never seen one like this before. Kunlun, as expected of Kunlun. So terrifying. Xia did not speak, but his upraised long spear didn't dare to move away from Lin Qian. The most shocked among them was the middle-aged attendant. Her expression changed constantly and she was shocked. Her mother had served Shi Ziming and she had been very knowledgeable from a very young age. After working hard on her cultivation in these years, she had reached the cusp of Shen power. She was also just one step away from martial level. Even so, she had to work together with other people to subdue this Kunlun youth. He really was terrifying. The other sword Xiao were also entangled up. Qi Jiaoyu and the others were lacking compared to Lin Qian, but they were evenly matched to the other Kunlun disciples. The fighting between the two was extremely intense. The other three sect disciples also were fighting hard. The Mo were on home territory and they had the advantage of numbers. At this time, they were fighting in a fury, and they did not care about fatalities. There were Shuzha constantly dying and the situation was becoming increasingly disadvantageous towards them. Lin Qian appeared disheveled, but his left eye that was completely red became even more heated as his blue eye became even colder. His usually gentle smile was as sharp as a sword edge. He had predicted how difficult this trip to the Great Peace was, but he had not expected that he would encounter three opponents that were this powerful. These three people were extremely strong. The old man's Mo physique was also eerie and hard to predict. Even Lin Qian did not recognize it. Soul Mo lore was one of the top Mo skills among the Mo and supposedly had been passed down from the ancient times. He was even more shocked by the male in heavy armor. That was gravestone armor. The middle-aged female had a strange power, and Lin Qian even detected a thread of Shen power from her. These three, any one of them, should be a top expert in the world. He was meeting three at once. Fighting 3 against 1. Lin Qian's fighting spirit burned. He did not have any timidness or fear. The Taya sword in his hand seemed to come alive again. He suddenly raised the Taya sword. The blue Taya sword was like a sword of ice as a tiny light lit up at its tip. Holding the Taya sword, Lin Qian drew with the sword in the air. The light of the sword drew out streaks of light in the air. They seemed to be lines drawn on paper and did not dissipate. With every stroke of the Taya sword, a roar of thunder would sound. The three people facing him changed expressions. They recognized the power. All the power in the surroundings were vibrating uncontrollably with the strokes of the Taya sword. They were just about to attack when their bodies froze. They abruptly turned around to look at the steel forest behind them. In this moment, their faces were filled with shock. Chapter 623, The Dragon Claw Coming into the World. Is there really a Great Peace Treasure Pavilion? The subordinate asked curiously. Of course, Bu Heng replied without turning his head. He gazed at the ray of light that reached into the sky and was slightly absent-minded as he thought of other matters. Ha! Brother Bu is peerless in your intelligence and has set up a gigantic trap. This little brother has never respected a person but has to say I respect Brother Bu. The one who spoke was a large man that looked to be in his 40s. He had a pair of bright eyes. Brother Ming is too complimentary. Bu Heng bowed slightly and said with a smile, if it wasn't for Brother Ming, this one would not dare to act so dangerously. Going with the flow, Brother Bu is a true genius. Ming Hui clapped his hands and praised, you have such an elite battalion. If you can take this Jia, the power of the Yiksha clan will increase exponentially. The Yiksha clan's prosperity is in sight. I do not think so. A beautiful female next to Ming Hui couldn't resist smiling coldly and said, "The world respects the authority of great peace. We have already broken unspoken rules by preparing to attack them. If Budaran leads the Yiksha clan in taking this territory, people will most likely come to attack you." Ming Hui hurriedly said in apology, "Brother Bu, please forgive. This one has spoiled sister very much. Do not keep her nonsense on your mind." Bu Heng shook his head. "Brother Ming does not have to be so. Miss Yue is right." He suddenly raised his head and gazed at Great Peace City in the distance. He said lightly, "However, how can there be a perfect solution in such troubled times? If one does not advance and retreats, they will die without a fight." Ming Yue was startled when Bu Heng said such harsh words in such a light tone. If one does not want their clan to have to submit to others, then one needs to have a place of their own. My Green Yiksha clan has roamed for too long, the clan's people have a hard life, and the branch families mostly live as marauders, living off banditry. Bus' wish is to conquer a place for my clan to rest. These are troubled times, but even if this was a peaceful time, Bu might still fight. Ming Yue was stunned by the speech while Ming Hui showed admiration. He said with a laugh, "Brother Bus' words are great. A man should be like this in life. However, in my opinion, there is nothing wrong in raiding. It is an exciting life." Bu Heng's subordinates looked with respectful and reverent expressions at Bu Heng from behind him. This little brother can only envy the freedom of Brother Ming. However, there is nothing to be done about ties to the family. As for the future attacks that Miss Yue speaks about, it is possible, but there is nothing to worry about in the short term, Bu Heng said confidently. The major factions that are close to great peace are too busy fighting against the Xiuzhe now and do not have attention to spare. If Brother Ming cleans up all the traces, and not leave anything behind, no one can find an excuse to attack us. Also, if I have a buffer time, I will definitely be able to create an even stronger battalion. The last words were steely and strong confidence was evident. This little sister has worried too much. Brother Bu, please forgive my rudeness just now. Ming Yue suddenly bowed with a serious expression. Bu Heng hurriedly returned the bow. Miss Yue is too polite. Brother Bu seems to be very familiar with the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion, can you tell us more? Ming Hui said. I only know that there is a stone stele within it. Bu Heng said gravely, I do not know much. It was just coincidence that I learned some things. There are 3 treasures in the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. I know of one of the others but not of the last. What is the other treasure? Ming Hui was very curious. Bu Heng slowly said, Anti-Dragon Claw. Ming Hui and his sister's expression changed dramatically. Ming Hui exclaimed, Sky Missouri Weapon Anti-Dragon Claw. Impossible. A hint of desire flashed across Bu Heng's eyes but it quickly cleared up. It really is one of the 10 great Sky Missouri weapons, the Anti-Dragon Claw. I was also very surprised when I learned this. Brother Ming, you must know of the history of the Anti-Dragon Claw. While I do not know how Grandmaster Shi Ming obtained it, but since it was hidden for so many years, it seems that even the Grandmaster had been afraid of the inauspicious history of the weapon. Ming Hui recovered from his shock and said when he heard this, inauspiciousness. If a MO weapon is auspicious, is it even a MO weapon? Something used to kill, it is best for it to be inauspicious. His gaze was burning hot. I am even more curious about the last treasure. No matter what, it is Brother Ming's. Bu Heng's expression was normal. However, Brother Ming, do not let any of them escape. Ha, Brother Bu, don't worry. My Ming bandits have a nasty reputation but we do not break our word. Ming Hui laughed viciously and said, those young masters are the top-notch fat sheep. As to the 3 princesses, they can be maids for sister. Brother Ming needs to be careful. The 3 princesses all have experts with them, Bu Heng reminded. Brother Bu, many thanks for the reminder. Ming Hui said laughingly, against an army, the experts are just so. Ha, it wasn't a waste to come, we will definitely make a profit. Suddenly, Mingyu Wei's gaze moved and her expression changed slightly. She pointed at Great Peace City in the distance and shouted in shock, "Look!" Everyone followed her finger and looked. Their expressions all changed. The pillar of light that connected the earth to the sky suddenly disappeared. At this time, the steel forest was pulled up hundreds of zhang from the ground. Looking from afar, they were like a lonely pillar of stone, but nearby, people unconsciously stopped breathing when they looked at them. The sides of the stone pillar were smooth as though they had been cut and polished. The black material was as warm as jade. The area taken over by the steel forest was over hundreds of mu, and when they were all pulled up, the thick stone pillar covered with exquisite mo matrices was a wondrous sight. The Black Sea outside Great Peace had been restless starting when the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion had come out of the ground, and wailed like ghosts. Yet at this moment, the sea quieted. All of Great Peace City sank into a strange silence. Crack! A stone steel dropped from above the stone pillars and shattered when it hit the ground. This was. Everyone had shocked expressions and a strong feeling, it was coming. Crack! Crack! The stone steels continuously fell down. Following that was a string of cracks. Countless lines quickly spread across the thick black pillar. In a blink, the cracks covered all of the stone pillar. The suddenly changed shocked everyone. They unconsciously stopped fighting and looked at the stone pillar that was about to transform. Whoosh! It was not a loud sound, but it was like a signal. The stone pillar covered in cracks began crumbling apart. Fragments of various sizes came down like a rockslide. The people close by paled and hurriedly flew into the air to retreat. As they flew and looked back, their pupils contracted. They couldn't help but stop breathing. Oh, heavens! Above that pile of rock, an enormous dragon claw that was hundreds of zhang large was floating in the air. The anti-dragon claw that was seeing the light of day again seemed unusually excited and the 5 digits lightly tensed. Boom! A vast vicious energy suddenly ripped into the surroundings like a violent tide. Careful! Zhu Ku and the other two disengaged from Lin Qian and appeared immediately in front of their respective princesses. Boom! Light lit up on the bodies of the three as they managed to stop the vicious energy that reached them. Every one of them had a serious expression. The guards around them were blown away by the violent wave of energy like dried grass in the wind. Lin Qian's expression was shocked as the Taya sword was braced in front of him. When the vicious energy swept past, the Taya sword hummed and shook violently. Qi Jiaoyu, Chang Yuan Hao, and the others managed to withstand this vicious energy. But those that were weaker were wounded if they tried to resist. After the wave passed, it was completely silent and everyone had ashen faces. This item was so vicious it was shocking. Just its energy was so powerful. How terrifying would it be if it was used at full power? At this time, the ones that were still standing were either experts from Great Peace City or from the 4 major sections. But when these experts raised their heads to look at the enormous dragon claw, their minds wavered. Anti-dragon claw! Someone shouted and everyone shook. Even Lin Qian couldn't help the expression of shock that appeared on his face. As the eldest disciple of Kun Luan, he naturally knew of this name. Anti-dragon claw. Zhu Ke's gaze became unfocused for a quick moment before he quickly recovered. However, the heat in his eyes could not be disguised. The other people also had burning gazes. Anti-dragon claw, one of the 10 great Sky Missouri weapons. No wonder it was so powerful and vicious. Sky Missouri weapon, the strongest MO weapons. Every Sky Missouri weapon was a legend. Of the 10 great Sky Missouri weapons, there were only 3 whose locations were known and the people who possessed them were the strongest in the MO realm. It was the MO weapon that everyone MO dreamed of. Wait! That was... Everyone's gazes focused and landed on the shadow cast by the lower half of the anti-dragon claw. It was Xiao Mo Gu that had just went underground. One of his hands was touching the anti-dragon claw. His eyes were closed as he silently floated in the air. Compared to the enormous size of the anti-dragon claw, Xiao Mo Gu was as small as an ant. Adding on that he was in the shadow of the anti-dragon claw, no one had initially noticed him. But when people noticed his existence, their expressions changed. He was. Lin Qian's expression changed slightly. Even he had felt pressured by the power of that vicious energy, but Xiao Mo Gu hadn't reacted at all. He was trying to claim the anti-dragon claw. When this thought flashed through Lin Qian's mind, the next thought was, stop him. He still did not remember who Xiao Mo Gu was, but his intuition told him this was someone dangerous. Lin Qian's murderousness was burning, but he did not act. He was searching for the stone steel of legend. He did not understand why he felt such strong murderousness towards Xiao Mo Gu, but at this moment, the stone steel was more important. With the stone steel, Kunlun would find the key to cultivating Shen power. His gaze suddenly focused. There. In the pile of stones under the anti-dragon claw, there was a small section of a gray and nondescript stone steel showing. Without hesitation, Lin Qian shot at that steel like lightning. Also at this time, Zhuo Mo's tightly closed eyes opened. That pair of indifferent and icy eyes reflected everything. He was like a god in the air, coldly gazing down at the figure moving so fast it was near impossible to spot. Chapter 624, Attack. The other people present might not have spotted Lin Qian's charge, but Zhu Ku and the two others who had fought against him had been keeping an eye on him. They were extremely wary of Lin Qian. When Lin Qian moved, the three moved in tandem. Murderousness filled their minds. Previously, the situation had been unclear and they had other considerations. Now with the anti-dragon claw in the air, the MO skill steel below, the treasure pavilion reappearing, they had no other considerations. Their murderousness could not be suppressed. Midair, light flowed through the red and blue eyes. His long hair danced in the wind. Lin Qian knew that this was the time when victory was to be decided. He suddenly shouted, Kunlun! Kunlun! The sword Xiu of Kunlun responded. Almost at the same time, they threw their flying swords at Lin Qian. Light rose in the air as the swords flew across the sky. The 7 flying swords had 7 different sword essences. Cool and dim, or blinding and bright, or pressuring, or heavy, they were all from Kunlun. While they were different, they were all passed over to Lin Qian at the same moment. The 3 people moved, the 7 sword lights flashed and had gathered in front of Lin Qian. At some time, Lin Qian had turned around and faced the 3 people. His expression was grave, his right eye cold as ice, his left burning as fire. The 7 sword essences crisscrossed in front of him and formed a 7-colored wheel. His upraised Taya sword tip was the center where the 7 swords spun. A dot of light suddenly was emitted from the sword tip. Kill! A sound came from Lin Qian's tongue. The air in front of him seemed to be heavily impacted and exploded. The 7 swords revolved in counterclockwise direction like a flower blooming. The 7-colored wheel of light expanded to about 10 mu in size in a flash. It was like an enormous net that came crashing down on the trio. Inside the sword wheel, sword essence roiled like the enormous maw of a gaping beast about to consume the people. Zhu Ke's expression changed slightly as he shouted, "You want to die." The middle-aged attendant's gaze was cold and she was clearly angry. Xia's right leg braced against the ground, the long spear raised as his presence increased continuously. Pew pew. 2 water droplets shot through the chest of a Kunlun sword Xiu and created 2 blooms of blood. The pupils of this Kunlun sword Xiu suddenly expanded as he dropped down. Bam, he fell onto the ground like a block of wood. On the face covered by the billowing dust, a slightly difficult smile slowly froze. Qi Jiaoye's expression changed slightly. He had made a successful sneak attack, but he had intended to disturb these Kunlun sword shio. That killing move was clearly a battle formation technique. It was powerful, but it required a high level of teamwork. Qi Jiaoyu had originally thought that when these sword shio were threatened, they would recall their flying swords. But this Kunlun sword shio would die rather than call his flying sword. Kunlun. For some reason, Qi Jiaoyu felt a chill. Other people saw that Zuomo's hand was on the anti-dragon claw, but they didn't know that the anti-dragon claw was covered in invisible threads. Zuomo's hand was among these threads. In Zuomo's sea of consciousness. Pu dazedly murmured, 3,000 threads of worry, there really are 3,000 threads of worry in this world. When Wei heard Pu Yao's words, his body shook. Shock climbed onto his face. He exclaimed, 3,000 threads of worry. 3,000 threads of worry. Knowing the name of the threads wasn't of any help to Zuomo. The other ends of these threads had originally been tied to those skill steels, but now that the steel forest was destroyed and the steel shattered, these thin threads lost their anchors and floated in the air. They floated in the air like sea grasses and rippled with the wind. No one noticed their existence except for Zuomo. The area that Zuomo had reached into was where the threads were thickest, and the central part of the threads. He was touching a small bead, no, more accurately, it was a clear ball of something like mist. If it wasn't that his vision was modified by his state, and his hand was directly touching it, he would not have noticed it. But in his gaze, he could see that it was a bead. All the slender threads extended from this bead. When Zuomo touched this bead, all the thin threads that floated in the air and wrapped around the anti-dragon claw suddenly froze. The anti-dragon claw that had been so vicious and pressuring also froze. That transparent ball of mist suddenly became burning hot like molten metal. If Zuomo was in his usual state, his first reaction would be to release his grip and throw away the object. But at this time, in an inhuman state, Zuomo was unaffected. It was as though what was being burned was not his hand. He looked coldly at the bead without any change. The feeling of burning increased. Even though Zuomo had superior strength from cultivating the 10-crow celestial apparatus, he felt it was slightly burdensome now, and his hands started to tremble. In his vision, the threads floating and waving in the sky suddenly moved to wrap around him as though they encountered danger. The thin threads wrapped around the anti-dragon claw reflexively tightened. The anti-dragon claw started to tremble violently. The vicious anti-dragon claw didn't have any power to resist these thin threads. Facing the incoming threads, Zuomo did not dodge and reached out his left hand. The threads were unusually quick and tightly wrapped around Zuomo in a flash. Zuomo finally felt the suppression that the anti-dragon claw did. These threads were terrifyingly strong. Once he was tied, he felt as though he was unable to breathe. Even if his 10-crow celestial apparatus Mo physique was the third-ranking Mo physique in general level, it was as fragile as paper in front of such power. At this time, a light suddenly flashed across Zuomo's cold and emotionless eyes. He was an experienced hunter and had patiently waited for a chance. When the chance appeared in front of him, he did not hesitate. He suddenly acted. The death of his shitty did not affect Lin Qian at all. But in the depths of his icy right eye, an emotion that was hard to describe flashed and disappeared. His movements did not pause at all. As the sword wheel moved towards the three that were the greatest threat to him, he had already turned around. Like a large bird spreading its wings, he charged at the stone steel. The area in front of him was flat and without any obstructions. In the sky, the anti-dragon claw violently trembled. Xiao Mo seemed to be taming it. Lin Qian forced his murderousness down and still aimed for the stone steel. With Xiao Mo's present strength, it was akin to death to seek to tame the anti-dragon claw. It would be impossible to subdue such a vicious object without being martial level or having a special method. This was not something that could be solved by talent. Treasures like Sky Missouri weapons had to go through tribulations to form. There were too many chance occurrences required to tame it. Lin Qian didn't have any thoughts of taming the anti-dragon claw. As to the third treasure of the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion in legend, he was curious, but it was just curiosity. Up until now, he still hadn't seen it. However, even if he saw it, he would not act even if it was tempting. He only had one goal. The Mo skill steal. He was extremely quick. At this time, there were no other people in his field of view. Even with his composure, his heart couldn't help but beat faster. If he could obtain the Great Peace Mo skill steal, he had absolute confidence no one could take it from him. Even if he was the only one left, he had the confidence he could take the stone steel and kill his way back to Kunlun. Closer. Almost in his hand. Just as a hint of irrepressible joy flashed through Lin Qian's eyes, a figure suddenly shot out of the stone debris. Lin Qian's pupils contracted. His reaction was rapid. The Taya sword in his right hand stabbed at the figure. A blinding spark lit up on the sword tip of the Taya sword. Wen was covered in dust as he climbed out of the rubble. When the maze had suddenly collapsed, they had almost been buried alive. However, they reacted quickly. The moment the maze collapsed, they had cast Yao arts to protect themselves. Otherwise, with the Yao's relatively weak bodies, they would have turned to meat paste. At this time, the benefits of cultivating Mo physique like Wen did was clear. He fought his way out of the pile of stones relying just on his strong body. However, the moment he came out and without knowing the situation, a terrifying sword essence locked onto him. His expression immediately turned pale. The sword essence was so strong it was almost unimaginable. His soul almost left his body. But the harsh training of guard camp showed their results. His mind was completely blank but his body instinctively reacted. The armored plumes on his body vibrated in unison as his Mo skill was channeled to its maximum. The Mo spear in his hand, he instinctively took a step forward, and a textbook stab was completed like lightning. Without any thinking, he breathed and shouted, "Kill." At the tip of the Mo spear, a thick black spear energy flashed and shot out of the void just in front of the Taya sword. Under the pile of stone debris, a purple arrow light suddenly flew out. It drew out a rule-straight streak of light in the air and aimed at Lin Qian. It was Nan Yu's South Sky Arrow Art. A layer of faint green-gray mist that rippled strangely spread towards Lin Qian's feet in a blink. Cang Ze's Gray Scar Art. Both the purple energy and the green-gray mist had a watery tinge that was hard to see with the eye. Ming Ju Zis Water Wood Light Art. The ground under Lin Qian's feet suddenly crumbled. A strange field suddenly surrounded him. It was like an invisible rope that caught him. Ha! A man that can lasso a horse is strong and masculine. The orange-haired Yao's heartless laugh came from the pile of stones. The black smoke Yao did not attack but leapt straight for the stone steel. He knew that he was the weakest but he was extremely smart. He immediately found the best way to disrupt the other's thoughts. Everyone had been working together for a long time and had built up their teamwork. In this attack, their cooperation and timing had been perfect. And this was the first fight after their power had increased. Every attack contained all of their strength. It was definitely their strongest ever attack. The killing intent filled the air. Chapter 625 Assimilation surprise flickered across Lin Qian's mind. He was not threatened by the power of these attacks but what he was surprised at was that the Mo skills and Yao arts these people cultivated were not normal. It was just because they were not strong enough yet to express the power of their Mo skills and Yao arts that he was able to deal with them. Who were these people? Lin Qian was slightly shocked but with the stone steel within reach, he did not plan on wasting time on these questions. The Taya sword did not waver as it stabbed forward. The spear energy, the purple arrow energy, the green-gray ripples, they all seemed to sink into a bog and suddenly slowed down. The Taya sword also shook once. Pia. The lights shattered. One and the others were sent flying as though they were hit with hammers. Lin Qian's body wavered slightly. His expression changed slightly. When the Taya sword had come into contact with the energies, he found that there was a layer of a faint and strange power covering them. Even so, he had the power to defeat them, but he hadn't expected that the restraining power that came from under him was acting one wave after another, in the form of 3 waves. With the 2 other waves interfering, he had lost slightly. His mind shook. He knew that he had underestimated these people. These few were not strong, but their teamwork was good. He also had let down his guard after the hard fight just now. Damn it! Lin Qian's retaliation was unusually strong. Including the black smoke Yao, everyone was thrown far away as though they were hit by charging wild beasts. Attacking in anger, Lin Qian's attack was very exquisite. Killing them was not as important as getting the stone steel. But when 2 figures suddenly appeared in front of him, Lin Qian's pupils abruptly contracted. For the first time, he stopped moving. A strong suction force suddenly formed from the spirit consciousness and Ling power inside Zhuomo's body. The slender threads were immediately pulled into his body without any warning. There was no change in his cold thinking. Like a puppet, Zhuomo controlled his body. There were 3 treasures in the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. When Zhuomo saw the thin strands covering the anti-dragon claw, he realized that these slender threads restraining the anti-dragon claw was the 3rd treasure. In an icy state, Zhuomo was unusually sensitive. The stone steel had reminded him that he could only find the world in this icy state. When he confirmed that these slender threads were the 3rd treasure, he thought that obtaining these threads would be related to his icy state. The icy state was produced because his spiritual consciousness and his Ling power continuously went into his body. These slender threads definitely had something to do with spiritual consciousness and Ling power. The slender threads continued to burrow into Zhuomo's body. His thoughts were still calm. Zhuomo's daring surpassed Pu Yao and Wei's expectations. They gaped with wide eyes as they looked at Zhuomo's mad action. They almost didn't believe their eyes. Zhuomo was slightly fickle, but it was rare to see him do such a crazy thing. Was this the influence of his present state? The 2 did not know, but their hearts were in the air. This guy is crazy. Pu Yao's voice trembled. It wasn't that he had never seen treasures before. He had been a Sky Yao. But because he had seen many treasures, he felt that Zhuomo was insane. The more powerful the treasure, other than chance encounters, the more strength one needed. The top treasures all had intelligence and chose their masters. Those without strength would not be able to even tolerate the power of the treasure and would die immediately. Seeing a good treasure and charging up to grab it was the best way of dying immediately. Thinking how Zhuomo was just in general rank now, his heart trembled. This guy is greedy to the bone. He doesn't want to live. Pu Yao gritted and shouted. He and Wei were both in Zhuomo's sea of consciousness. If Zhuomo died, they would naturally turn to dust with him. Wei was silent for a moment and then said with a smile, "Don't you feel that he has the mannerisms as master?" Pu Yao stilled. That face appeared in front of his eyes. He blinked, and a thread of pain in his heart dissipated. He said coldly, "She was martial level. The anti-dragon claw should not end up in the hands of anyone else." Wei raised his head and murmured as he looked at the enormous anti-dragon claw. The words voiced what Pu Yao thought. He was silent. "It is definitely impossible for a general to subdue the anti-dragon claw," Wei said directly. "I experienced the entire process of Master subduing the anti-dragon claw. With her martial strength, she still almost lost her life. The key to subduing is on the 3,000 threads of worry." Pu Yao was still silent. Wei raised his head to gaze at the anti-dragon claw and said, "Shi Ziming is a true genius and found something that is a bane to the anti-dragon claw. 3,000 threads of worry, it really is true to the name, even the most brutal power cannot hold against threads of worry. Pu Yao said solemnly, I do not know much about the 3,000 threads of worry. I just know that it is one of the most mysterious Yao star cores. There are some rare mentions of it in history but just a few mentions. It is said only those that cultivate both spiritual consciousness and Ling power can see it. Wei nodded. Aswa's strategy appears to be correct. This boy is filled with strangeness. Pu Yao's tone became normal. After some thought, he suddenly said, there is a stupid method to taking a Yao star core, it is to assimilate it. Just as his words came out, a light flashed across Sua Mo's cold eyes. Assimilation. At this time, countless thin strands headed into the depths of his body. They were just like Sua Mo's consciousness and Ling power. Following the rush of threads, Sua Mo suddenly felt a thread of thought that was slightly timid. The Yao star core. Sua Mo didn't hesitate and the soul-setting divine light inside his body flowed like a fish along Sua Mo's arm into the Yao star core in Sua Mo's hand. The Yao star core suddenly froze. 3,000 threads of worry was suddenly filled with terror and panic. It was like a child that was scared and didn't dare to move. Even the slender threads that were moving into Sua Mo's body froze. The soul-setting divine light pulled the Yao star core slowly into Sua Mo's palm. Soul-setting divine light. Wei looked dazedly at this scene. The soul-setting divine light's inheritance had always been with him but he had never comprehended it and didn't know that it was so powerful. Pu Yao was also slightly dumbstruck. Even the 3,000 threads of worry was so docile in front of it. The Yao star core merged into Sua Mo's left palm. When it completely merged into Sua Mo's palm, Sua Mo felt all the pressure restraining his body disappear. A handful of slender threads came out of his body and connected to the anti-dragon claw. At the center of the sun script on Sua Mo's left hand, there was a little star. It would be extremely hard to notice if one did not pay attention. Sua Mo was not content. Taking advantage of the chance, he raised his head and his cold gaze swept across the mountainous anti-dragon claw. The anti-dragon claw shook. Sua Mo had accepted Princess Xia's arrangements but out of consideration of safety, he still decided to bring Agui and Tsing Lianer along. At this most important time, the two appeared. Tsing Lianer was dressed in black as she stood. Her gaze was blurred as she said serenely, Kunlun Sword Xiu, why come to our Mo territories to steal our treasures? Agui did not speak and looked expressionlessly at Lin Qian. Lin Qian's expression was grave and he did not seem to hear it. All of his Ling power was channeled. The Taya sword was held horizontally in front of him. A thread of blue appeared in his right red eye and a flicker of fire appeared in his blue left eye. His expression was devout. Kunlun. As though he used all the power in his body, the shout that came from his chest was forceful. Tsing Lianer's onyx eyes suddenly became as bright as stars. Her serene voice was uncertain in the air, Kunlun Sword Xiu, so vicious, are you not afraid of karma? Her sleeve seemed to flow weakly towards Lin Qian. Just as Tsing Lianer acted, purple energy flashed across Agui's eyes. Her hand suddenly flicked at Lin Qian. The moment the two attacked, under the sword wheel, Zhu Ku and the middle-aged attendant's expressions changed. Xia's body shook slightly. None of them had expected the two females with Xiao Mo Gu to be so powerful. For the first time, they felt wary of Xiao Mo Gu. What was the origin of this youth? Lin Qian ignored the attack from the two. His gaze focused on the Taya sword as he cut down without hesitation. Under this chop, all the air within 10 li seemed to solidify. In the world, there was only the Taya sword. The power from the three collided in a show of strength. Boom! The deep explosion exploded in people's minds. In this moment, everyone seemed to lose control of their body. Their blood and muscles shook. When the sound dissipated and they recovered, their expressions changed. On the battlefield, Tsing Lianer's sleeve had exploded up to her elbows. A large hole that was 50 zhang was under a Gui's feet. Other than the stone steel, everything else had been torn to pieces. A thread of blood flowed out of Lin Qian's mouth as he stared with his red and blue eyes at the two. He reached up to wipe the blood from his mouth. With his right hand holding the dim Taya sword, he said coolly, I hadn't expected to encounter two experts that cultivate Shen power. When these words came out, all the Mo present were shocked. Shen power. These two females cultivated Shen power. Tsing Lianer was intimidated. Lin Qian stated the two of them cultivated Shen power because he wanted to make them the targets. If the other Mo had other desires, the situation would turn to chaos again. She detected the gazes that had all focused on her. Everyone's gazes became suspicious and hesitant. This man was really powerful and cunning. She knew that nothing she could say now could help. Once the seed of suspicion was planted, it could not be killed. So Kunlun sword Xiao make a living based on their mouth. Tsing Lianer said coolly. Her hands moved into a strange position. The purple energy in a Gui's eyes increased. Lin Qian did not fear her and said with a smile, you might cultivate Shen power but it is a pity. One has just started and the other's soul is corroded. You do not qualify to stop me. At this time, a cold voice suddenly came from the sky. Qualifications? What qualifications are needed to kill the people of Kunlun, that you're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel? We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.